of the season, and we certainly appreciate all of you that are checking in. If you're watching on YouTube, Pad Nation One, we appreciate you. We ask that you subscribe there. If you are watching at Pad Nation on Facebook, we appreciate you there as well. I'm going to bring in my guest to talk about a specific topic about the season, the reason for the season. Of course, he is the pastor of Maximizing Life Family Worship Center, home of Max Life Church in the good city of Greensboro, North Carolina. And of course, his show, the Life Cafe, will not show, of course, the broadcast will air and continue to air on the Bachelor News Radio Network on Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. He is Pastor Omar Rojas. Pastor, God bless. Good to see you again, man. And I hope all is well with you, sir. You got to turn your mic on. It's okay.
Everything's going well. And I hope the same for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good to see you. It's been a minute, but every time I get you on, we have some thought provocative questions and things and topics. I was sharing with some people, well, actually, they were sharing with me how Christmas has become for everybody for so long so commercialized and is about gifts, and Santa Claus gets all kinds of credit, right? For kids and everything else. But as Christians, as believers, some of us lose sight of the reason for the season. First of all, what is the reason? Explain what the true reason of Christmas is for the season.
Right. So, I hate to sound like typical church guy, right? But the reason for the season really is Jesus. We as Christians, as believers, set aside a day because we know he was not born on December 25th in the year 0000. But that day is set aside so that we can just celebrate the gift of Jesus Christ. And you're right, it has become commercialized because and I don't want to jump ahead of wherever we're going, but it has become commercialized. But I think that we live in there's so much information that's available to us on the internet, and so you can go to the book of Google and and search out the meaning of Christmas and all of that's a pagan holiday, and so on and so forth. And people look at that and say, hey, well, we don't need to celebrate Jesus on this day because this is what the Christmas tree, this is how this started, and this is what the Romans did on December 25th, back in their day. So it's been a lot of things, but he is literally the reason for the season.
What I don't understand sometimes, Pastor, is if a lot of Christians don't celebrate Halloween for obvious reasons, they may have something at church, something different, right? And they kind of have this sense of giving at Thanksgiving. Then why do we get away from Jesus at Christmas? And especially some of us that look like us. Let's be real, right? That we want to commercialize it. We want to go out our way and buy a bunch of gifts. Come January 2nd, you like, oh my God, I got to pay all these bills off my credit card and everything else. And so I don't understand it. If you're really conscious, right, about sort of some people think demonic things for Halloween, then why are you not conscious about when it comes to Christmas, which is Christmas in a way, if you say it that way,
Right. And even, not to get away from the question, but even when we say, Xmas, it's like no, it's Christmas, and but if we're gonna say like you're saying, Christmas, well, the cross actually in the shape of an X. So we could say Xmas, and have some kind of historical fact, information that would back that up. Um, but you know, it goes back to I would probably venture to say maybe appreciation, because we lose sight of the gift givers,
Hmm.
and we're excited about the gift, about receiving, and that's there's so many reasons as to why Christmas has become what it's become, but at the end of the day, there are, and I'm sure probably most of us, I can include me, I can talk about me best, have been in a place where I actually like the gift more than I like the person that gave it to me.
Hmm.
And so it's like we're excited about these gifts that we're receiving and getting, and oh, this was everything I was looking for, this is everything that I needed, wanted, whatever term you want to use right there, that it's like I forgot about who gave it to me. And again, that is the reason for the season. Like, if we're Christians, if we're believers, we're here because he laid his life down. But we get to really, really enjoy the gift and not the one who, gave the gift essentially.
And you're right. The ultimate gift. Talking with Pastor Omar Rojas of the Maximizing Life Church. Their broadcast, of course, on Saturdays here on our network is from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. They're out of Greensboro. We'll get into their all their services. We'll get to that shortly. Pastor, if we're here to serve, um, do you think that Christians kind of take that too far, and they have this feeling of not so much maybe service, but giving rather than actually serving? In other words, I think you could do just as much if you go to the homeless shelter on Christmas or even before, and give your time there. You serve there. If Christ came not to be served but to serve, and he taught the disciples, better than I, then why don't we have more of a sense, a purpose of serving rather so much giving, and giving in the material?
Right. Um, I think that we, because when the Bible or when God instructs us to serve, it should really be in the same form that Jesus served. I mean, he served to the point where he laid down his life, right? And I think that is our problem, because we want to serve what we want to serve.
Mm.
It's like, you can't, as a customer, I don't want to go to a restaurant and order what I want, and then the chef or whomever's cooking, cook or whatever term, and they give me whatever they want me to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of how it is with us as believers, and I always include me in that, because we want to serve what we want, but serving requires sacrifice, and oftentimes it's a sacrifice that many of us don't want to pay, if you will.
Great point. Do you feel like when you look at this, and this might be way out in left field, but you are a pastor, so I want to ask this question: that we lose ourselves in this season, right? And then does that open the door for Satan or anything to come in and get things messed up when we lose sight of what the season is? In other words, if we get out of our elements because we want to go and buy this and make our kids happy and everything else, but we forget about the real serving that you just spoke about with Christ, does that open the door for anything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The door, the proverbial door, if you will, is wide open. And, you know, um, again, because as you were saying, we get so caught up in wanting to give, and that again we essentially lose sight of the real reason uh, for the season. And it's almost becomes, and during Christmas time, I mean, let's really kind of look at this thing, because you have people during this season, like Thanksgiving and obviously between Thanksgiving and Christmas, where people are picking up second jobs, part-time jobs. You'll see things. I know they have newspapers, but you'll see in newspapers, that places need seasonal help and online seasonal help, because obviously customers are out and about spending money. And people again are picking up these part-time jobs and things like that, just so that we can give. And it's like this thing has really become just the gift giving part, has really just become a god, if you will. Like I'm literally devoting my time, my talent, my treasure, to this season. And again, as believers, it's not what the season is about.
You got your crew in the house, of course, by the way, making comments. I saw a couple of comments that said, absolutely, we have done that too. Sadly, many times we limit to those moments, Thanksgiving, Christmas, when servitude is needed daily. Went on to say that serving requires sacrifice. And that's a great point, because um, it's almost like some people, it might be a stretch, but some people say they're Christians, and I'm not judging anybody, but they don't go to church until Easter, right? Or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's almost like that. And are we really in that spirit until it's Christmas time, when our kids are watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeers or whatever we're doing? Are we really in that servitude all year round? Because I mean, from a practical standpoint, I'm Santa Claus all year for my kids. You know what I mean? And you're going to be, and that pagan, that non-Christian way kind of gets into our lives. Is there any scripture that you can go to give the real origin of Jesus? Because, like you said, it's not the 25th. This whole, everything, the story about in the manger and all that kind of stuff. Is there scripture in there that we can have that will show and give clarity about the real season and the real season as it relates to Jesus Christ?
When it comes down to like a specific day, no. However, just as you mentioned, and I'm really drawing a blank at this particular moment.
Okay.
With the three wise men, as Jesus was born, who came, bearing gifts. And I mean, if we really just hold true to the text, the gifts they were not given to the people around, because there was nobody around.
Right.
It was Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, and maybe a couple of animals around there. At least that's what the nativity scene showed us up at the front of the church, on the lawn of the church. But those gifts were given to him. They were brought for him.
Right.
And of course, over time, over years, decades, scores, centuries, things have changed. And a lot of that comes, from, I'm about to open up a box. Or if I was at church on Sunday, I said, I'm about to get in trouble. A lot of that comes from an identity crisis,
Mhm.
right? Because the Bible tells us, "My people perish for the lack of knowledge," and it's like if we don't know who we are, or even the reason behind the season, then we can really lose sight of not just the season, but we can really lose sight of ourselves. Because again, going back to that, with the three wise, the three magi, is who they were. Um, uh, you know, Again, they brought gifts to Jesus. Now we bring gifts to our people, and that's where we started to, over time, incorporate other cultures and so on and so forth, to where we get to where we are now. December 25th, we are doing things like the Germans did with the Christmas tree. We're doing it on the day that the Romans were celebrating a sun god. Decorating our homes again, like the Germans, with the trees and the greenery inside of the home and on the outside of the home with lights. And so it's like, as time goes on, it's like, I'll pick a little bit of this, take a little bit of that, take a little bit of that, and put it all into one. And this is what we're going to do. And we've lost sight of ourselves, and in doing so, losing sight of ourselves, obviously we've lost sight of God. And again, the reason for the season.
Yeah. As you can see on the screen here, I don't know if you can.
I can see it. Yes, sir.
Right. And so that really refers to what you were talking about. With the angel of the Lord appeared and said, quote, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people." And goes on to verse 11. Talking with Pastor Omar Rojas. I'm sorry, here on the Bastard News Radio Show. Pastor, again, maybe it's a stretch, but if we're taught as believers that you worship one God, and other gods could be idols, it could be, you eat or smoke or whatever the case may be. And
Absolutely.
if your God, or if your season is about, I got to buy this and buy this, and it's all about Christmas parties and everything, is that a form of, you know,
Worship.
worshiping? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Then at that point, to a certain degree becomes really a pagan holiday, even to the Christian.
Hmm.
Because again, who or what are we worshiping? It's almost as if, because you look in the Old Testament, they would lay down their sacrifices on an altar, right? They would sacrifice animals and things of that nature, and they would spill that blood right there at an altar. They would
Right.
build an altar and do that, and offer these sacrifices. So if we're not careful, that Christmas tree can be the altar.
Hmm.
And our blood, sweat, and tears that we put forth, throughout the year or during that season, we end up spilling it, if you will, at the foot of this makeshift altar or this tree. And so yeah, it can, as Christian as we can make it, we can still be Christians participating in a pagan holiday by removing I hate to sound cliche, removing that reason for the season.
Right.
Because
Because
I
if it's misconception, or we as believers are utilizing Christmas in the wrong way, if you will, and but we clearly don't want to be out and watching anything, regarding Halloween, then again, I just don't understand how some of us can't just equate the same thing when it comes to Christmas. Like, you're losing your mind, like you're going crazy to get that Xbox or whatever else, or even for your husband or your wife or whatever. You just go on, like you said, taking a second job. That has to be opening up a lot of Pandora's type of boxes, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it becomes a form of worship, and if it holds true in the scripture that God is a jealous God, well, then it's no wonder, like you said, on January 2nd, that I can't meet my contractual agreements. Well, does not God hold us to, to to those contractual agreements, not just my signature, but doesn't God also say, hey, well, essentially keep your word. You said you were going to pay, you know, again, it's no wonder we opened up a box, and or we open up a box, and it's almost like we're throwing our money in the box and it gets locked up. And now, to a certain degree, man, I can't wait till January 31st or whatever the date is. So I can get my tax refund.
Right.
So I can recover from whatever happened, for the Christmas season. And I know you said there was some maximizers on, and they're probably going to laugh right through there because I talk about tax season.
People can't wait for that tax season all the time. Right? A couple more questions too, folks. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Apostle Omar Rojas and Maximizing Life Family Worship Center, home of the Max Life Church and the Life Cafe, which will air on Saturdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Two-parter, real quick.
Okay.
A lot of people say because of these things that we're in end times. What's your thoughts on that? And then when you talk about, we both talked about, okay, January 2nd comes, you got no money, you got to figure out how you're paying this. And even before that, you see a lot of people getting depressed. Depression comes heavy at the holidays because we're trying to go out of our way to be, keep up with the Joneses, or just trying to please what we can't do. So talk about that, the depression, and then how do you even kind of counsel that? Because it happens a lot even before we get to the new year. It starts at Thanksgiving and it keeps going.
Yeah, because you think, like I said, starting in at Thanksgiving, you think about family. The holidays is about family. Just throwing this in here, but usually in the month of December we cancel Bible study on Wednesdays because we want those who are members of Max Life. This is the focus on the family month. I want you to focus on your family. We can get back. We can get back to Bible study. But focus on your family because that's how we look at Thanksgiving to right up to the New Year's New Year's Day, and so it can be really easy to slide over into depression. Especially when we're right around the season, this family season, and hey, maybe somebody passed away, this time last year, or maybe somebody, we celebrated together, or, we used to, every Christmas we met at Big Mama and them house.
Yeah.
And now Big Mama and them are gone. And so, who's gonna take her place, and so on and so forth. And I am an advocate. My wife talks about this and says it often. You need Jesus and a couch.
You're right.
So we can pray, no doubt, and pray heaven down. But we need to see that professional too. Because and we talked about this either this past Sunday or the Sunday before, because Jesus can, and learning of him can, bring the deliverance, say from depression or whatever it is that a particular person is facing. He can bring the deliverance, Jesus can, but that couch can keep you from going back.
Right.
And it's the beauty of the wisdom that God put in man, where God again can bring the anointing, that destroys the yoke.
Right.
Um, and I'm not trying to sound too preachy tonight. It's him that brings that, right? But he also, God puts people in our life to help us in situations. You think about Moses, when Moses was trying to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, out of bondage, and he went to go talk to his father-in-law Jethro, and Jethro told him, his father-in-law says, Moses, you're not doing good. You're trying to handle all of these issues, and you're trying to handle it to the point where you can't get things done. You cannot follow the will of God for your life because you're trying to be everything to everybody. And so again, God brings Jethro and Moses together, to help him. And I know Jethro was his father-in-law, but Jethro served as his couch, as his wise counsel, to say, hey, you're killing yourself.
Yeah.
Get you some help.
I think this is really taboo. I think, especially with us, that we don't realize that God puts people, places, and resources in place for you to use. Like your wife said, it's no shame in, if you're depressed, going on that couch. People think, okay, you're gonna pray it away, right? I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, you tell me. But you're not using what God has put on the planet for you to be able to take advantage of. What about the end times? I'm getting a lot of people are saying we're seeing this because I had one pastor said we're straying away. Between climate change, all these hate crimes and mass shootings, and the topic we have tonight, is that, are these the signs that the scriptures talk about?
It's absolutely, wars, and again, rumors of wars, and all of these things that we can see, not just in Revelation, but laden throughout the entire scriptures, that talks about end times and visions, that we're definitely living in that, and we've been living in it a long time. Essentially, we're down to one prophecy, and that's his return. So yeah, everything that we're seeing, all these, COVID and these different strands, we don't want to say that, because it sounds like a biblical term, but a plague, and multiple plagues, and you had a plague of locusts not that long ago. I believe here in America, some things going on over in Africa and other continents, where, like, we're literally looking at everything that the scripture talked about. They've happened. We just haven't seen him come back in.
And I don't understand too, Apostle, when you look at it, if people, if they believe, in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, there's some symbolism there where you can apply it to your life. So if you say the word plague, they go ha ha ha. So I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's the truth. I mean, we have new terms now. We call them, pandemics. But it really is a place. Things that have been released to bring discomfort. And so again, because we don't use these terms anymore, this can't be that. Well, are you sure?
Yeah. Final question for you. We talked about the end times, but and the warning signs, the signs. Now we're just waiting for the return. But when you look at this climate of hate and mass shootings, I just had a police chief on the other day and talking about hate and mass shootings on the rise. My state of Connecticut, we've had 2 or 3 of them, Sandy Hook and a couple of others. And it's just crazy. How do people like you, leaders of the flock, and Christians alike, bring people to Christ in this climate? I mean, or is it just one of those things where these are prophecies that have to take place till we get to the end day?
Right. Um, yeah. Well, they don't just have to. They're going to, things are going to take place. It's no way around it. Um, I think, as Christians, as believers, um, we miss living this life out loud. Um, we some of us talk a good game, but people are watching. They're looking to see. I hear you, and I might, that person may be straddling the fence, you know, um, but are just sitting back waiting. Well, let me watch and see how he or how she, you know, handles life, and unfortunately, if people hang around long enough, they won't see me live out the Christ that I speak of. You know, had the pleasure of talking to a young man here recently who, who really feels a pull, to God, um, but has a problem with the church.
Mm,
And that's tough because the church is designed to help build and help people develop their relationship with God.
right.
But how can I do that? How can he do that when he has a problem with the church because of what he said? Now, we're not talking about a specific church. The people of God, they make up the church.
Right.
Um, so it's a people problem.
Mm,
Excuse me, and it's like, man. So God is using the church to help people build their relationship with Him. But if I have a problem with that, then what? And his problem is because he's seen how people do.
right.
So it's like, man, if getting to God means I got to deal with y'all, then I'm good.
Right.
But
And
still feels the pull.
right. And to your point, for you talk about your fine church, I had a family member. One of my family members is a Christian, but she's a browbeater.
Mhm.
Everything comes down. You need to go to church. And she's
Yeah,
evolved. She's evolved a little bit, but what she browbeat a few people in my family, and then at the end of the day, they said, "Well, if church is like this, I don't want to go." If you're gonna browbeat me to go and not
yeah,
come in love and do it different, then that's a
yeah.
turnoff.
And I mean, you just look at all the miracles and things that happened during Jesus' ministry. It was always well, I won't say always. That's a strong word. Quite often, when things happen for people, it was a result of their faith.
Mm,
It was a result of their belief in him and in what he could do. Um, and it's unfortunate, that people are not able to develop and build their faith, because the place I'm supposed to build and develop it, I have some, type of art towards the people that represent it. So when you talk about browbeat, I was browbeat. Um, you ought to this and you ought to that and so on and so forth. But it wasn't until, I had my experience, till I was around some people that were a little older than I was then, that helped me to realize, man, everybody's not like that. Everybody's, is not, beating you in the head.
right.
Everybody's not condemning you to hell,
Right.
because you still smoke a cigarette or you still drink a drink. You know, um, you know, there's not a cigarette that's going to keep somebody out of heaven, and there's not a drink that's going to keep somebody out of heaven also. Now, I don't want to give anybody a license either.
Right, right.
Oh, the pastor said it. I'm on my way to the bar right now.
He said it live on the Bachelor's. Yeah, I heard it. He said it.
That's it.
Because people will look for licenses to do stuff anyway. They look for a reason to do it anyway. But
Somebody right
next time,
was saying that there's a buffer right after I said that on the YouTube feed.
exactly. And the next time we schedule, and I appreciate you coming on and short notice. I want to get into some of those other groups that feel
Yeah,
that way, and I'll just say groups.
I got you.
So, and you
Understood.
can give you your scriptures and everything. You'll be ready for that. Okay,
Yeah.
Apostle, tell everybody about Maximizing Life Church and um, not only the church and church services, what you do, what's your goal, your slogans, and the broadcast that you have on Saturdays.
Right. As you've heard, and at some point during the broadcast tonight, my wife and I pastor a church by the name of Maximizing Life Family Worship Center. For short, we call it, Max Life Church. But we are in the great metropolis of Greensboro, North Carolina. 2902 East Market Street, again in Greensboro, North Carolina. Just giving service times. We have service on Sunday mornings at 9:13 a.m. Strange time, but it's easy to remember. Also, it's a reference to a particular scripture, which is Amos 9:13. When you get a chance, go and read it. That's my invite to you. Go read Amos 9:13. But that's why we have our service beginning at 9:13 a.m. on Sundays. We also, before then, on Sunday mornings, we have what we call Life Cafe, which is our version of Bible study. We sit down with on a couch with a cup of coffee. And we talk about scriptures, talk about things that happen throughout the week, and get some kind of biblical reference and even some biblical insights to some of the things that we've been through. Because sometimes we come to church, and we are held, if you will, to whatever the preacher is preaching. And a lot of times we might come to church, and man, that really wasn't great message, just wasn't for me. Not this Sunday. And so Life Cafe we're going to jump right into, issues that maybe I face this week or you face this week, and we're going to talk about it. And that's at 8:30 on Sunday mornings. We also have Bible study on Wednesdays, but remember, we don't, for the month of December, we don't have Bible study. We're focusing on the family. Also, as been stated tonight, throughout this broadcast, we broadcast right here. However you're watching us tonight is how you can catch us on Saturday evenings at 5:00 p.m. It is also called the Life Cafe. So please go to Pad Nation on Facebook. Go like that page. Go to Pad Nation 1, I believe it is, on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
Go subscribe and jump on the videos and like and comment. Talk to the people when they're talking to you as you're catching the chat, or jump in the chat and talk to those whoever is on live with my brother. So again, Sundays 8:30, 9:13, Wednesdays, there it is on the screen, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturdays right here on Pad Nation 1. At 5:00 p.m. you can catch our Life Cafe broadcast. Listen, we believe in community work. We believe in getting out. We have unfortunately, we've I won't say unfortunately, but we have taken I won't say a vacation, but somewhat of a hiatus. In our community outreach, we in years past, and we're getting back to it. Believe in serving the community. Since we were talking about that tonight, we believe in serving the community. My wife and I on January 27th. Obviously next year we'll be celebrating 10 years of pastoring.
Wow.
And obviously we have an 18-year-old in the house. We have a 9-year-old in the house. And so for the 18-year-old, for 10 years, for 10 years of his life, he's known us serving. Our baby girl, she's 9. We've been pastoring longer than she's been alive. All she knows is serving. So man, when you were talking about serving, our children know that because they've seen it in us. Even when we're not doing events, I had one of the greatest compliments came from my son, not from a church member. Because people can tell you what they want to tell you,
Right.
but my son sees me at home, sees us at home, sees us at church, sees us out and about. And for our son to tell us, you guys are good people, the greatest compliment that I could receive as a pastor and as a person, for my son to be able to differentiate between the two and just say, you're just a good person because of what he's seen us do, because we have a heart to serve. And so that's what our ministry is. Our ministry is about. Our ministry is about serving, whether it's serving the homeless. I personally hand out clothing. I've got 2 bags in my car right now to serve to hand clothing out. We've teamed up with a local group here in Greensboro by the name of For the Toe. If you know me, you know I'm a sneakerhead. And I don't apologize for it. And so that's what this group is about, For the Toe. We linked up with them and donated, went to Center City Park here in Greensboro and donated quite a few. When I say few, I don't mean like 2 or 3, but quite a bit of shoes to the homeless as they walked up. And even after we didn't have enough because there were more homeless, or should I say, transitional people than we had shoes at that time, we got names and we're able to meet back with people because we reached out to other people in the group hey, you got a size 12, you got a size 11 and a half, and met back up with those people. And because again, we're about serving. So if you know anything, if you need to know anything about this ministry, it's that we like to sow, we like to give, because that is the heart of God. And that is what God would call us all to. You don't have to be a minister or whatever to serve. It's because we all are called to serve, whether it's in this season or out of this season and into the next. We've been called to serve.
And it's funny, we have some things in common, Apostle, because I have a 16 and a 14-year-old boys, and first of all, I got a lot of respect for teachers because when COVID hit, they would drive me crazy. I was ready for them to go back to school. I mean, that's just real talk, right? But I come from humble beginnings. I come from the projects back home, and they don't understand that. So what they need to understand is it could be taken away from you at any point. So it's
Absolutely.
not about these games and all this other stuff. It's about serving. So we serve at Thanksgiving and we serve at Christmas, and I want them to see that and understand it. Sometimes we can't get away, like serving your flock, your congregation. You gotta get a break too, and sometimes you get busy, so you can't do that. But I got 2 bags of clothes myself to do it, which is really amazing. You said that. And I think it's really important that people understand that, like that, as bad as we feel sometimes, and I won't get all, churchy, like you said, things could be worse. People have it worse. You know, you can't. You might be struggling. It might not be in the home you want, but somebody's actually transitional, as you call it, or
Yeah.
homeless.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's really important. Um, and let me just say this to the audience out there. I've been to the church. I plan on coming back again. So I give me a cup of coffee too in the morning because
Yeah.
I need that when I get there early. But you guys really is very, very good. You made me feel welcome and at home. You and Apostle Brandy and Elder Strickland and the whole group. I really felt welcome, and I think that's really important. I want to applaud you and what you do, and thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. All your whole, everybody involved with you. God bless to you and your family, and keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate your time this evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us, man. And God bless you, man. It really means a
Absolutely.
lot. It really means a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good to have you on, of course. Always good to have Apostle Omar Rojas on the Bastard News radio show.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you.
You shed your blood for me, Jesus, on Calvary. Thank you for being born for me, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
For loving me so.
Never, never, never know.
For loving me so. Yeah.
Thank you for your blood. Yeah.
Are you struggling with losing weight, high blood pressure, cholesterol, constipation, constant coughing, tight chest, bad breath, sore mouth or throat, joint pains, ulcers, bladder problems, and many more? Then you need to try Drink to Shrink. Drink to Shrink is an all-natural and organic herbal health wellness drink. It can transform your overall health in many areas. Drink to Shrink is by far one of the most affordable weight loss products that keeps you out of the gym, with 4 easy steps to help you reach your weight loss goals. For more info, call Ronell Baker at 276-806-8699 or on Facebook at Drink to Shrink.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks to Apostle Omar Rojas and of course, co-pastor, apostle pastor Brandy and the Maximizing Life Church. We really appreciate them. Again, their show will air on Saturdays from 5 to 6 p.m. And let me just put this on the screen before I go to my next guest, so you can see. If you happen to be in the Greensboro area, you just want to go to the church, the address is right there, 2902 East Market Street, one of my stomping grounds down there by A&T and all that area there. I used to live in Greensboro, so you can go there and check out the broadcast. And this is the times of their services: 9:13 a.m. Wednesdays at 7. They are taking that break as and everybody needs a break, especially the apostles. They need to take a break like everybody else. And then of course on Saturdays, the Life Cafe broadcast, not only on Pad Nation on Facebook, but Pad Nation 1 on YouTube. You'll be able to see it there as well. We'll make sure we get that out there. But big shout out to Apostle Pastor Brandy and Omar Rojas, and shout out to Elder Strickland for making that happen as well. I want to bring in my guest, switch gears a little bit, well, a lot of bit, if that's a term. He can correct me on that. He is the owner of Anasis Media, and of course he's the very good voice. He's got that voice of UMass Lowell in sports. He's Nick Anasis. Nick, always a pleasure to have you on, my friend.
LA, how are you?
Good, man. Good, man. And I hope all is well with you. Don't be stressing out over these holidays, because we tend to do that from time to time. But I digress. I want to go a different direction first, Nick, and I want to go to the Red Sox, because you said, you called it. I said, well, they need to improve. And you said, well, I don't see why anybody, especially Red Sox fans, would think that this ownership group, which owns 2 other franchises, if I'm not mistaken, in different sports, would spend the money to bring people in. They let Bogarts go. They haven't made a splash. Now, albeit the Yankees haven't really essentially as much as the Mets, but what are they doing in Boston? Are they just tanking it and saying we just need to recoup some money and keep it moving? Because, it's been a couple of times now. You got one guy that went to the Dodgers. Now you lose your shortstop. I mean, what are they trying to do, or lack thereof?
I don't think anybody has an answer, to be honest. I mean, unfortunately, it looks like how you laid it out is how it's playing it out. We had concerns that this group was going to remain on the sidelines, so to speak, in the early part of free agency. They haven't made a splash, to your point. There's been a lot of rumors, but rumors don't mean anything.
Right.
There hasn't been a lot of pen to paper. And again, the bigger story is, as you said, for the second time in X number of years, they've let arguably their best player walk.
Right.
Because they didn't want to pony up. So it seems like that the labels that have been applied to this leadership group, they're cheap, they're frugal, they don't want to spend the money. Unfortunately for the fan base, that seems like it's playing out. They still need an ace. They have no idea really how they're going to replace Bogaerts or for what amount of money they're still willing to give up to bring in another guy. It's square one. Basically, they're stuck at square one, and the frustration with the fan base has been growing for a long time. Really since before even last year's opening day.
Right.
They kind of strung together through smoke and mirrors, duct tape and WD-40. They got by at 500 for somehow through middle of July, but then the wheels came off shortly after the All-Star break, and the panic button, I think, was pushed, at least among the fan base. So we'll see. I know it's only quote unquote mid-December, but this is a fan base, as we know, that's used to success, and more to the point, they're used to the ownership group putting down some dollars by this point in the off season to bring in a name or multiple names in the past. The fact that they're seeing an all-star walk yet again is not sitting well with the fan base. And to answer your question in a roundabout fashion, I don't know what direction they're going to go. I thought there would be an initial signing. I thought it would frankly be Bogaerts, but him going to San Diego doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I still would have, if I had to put money on it, bet that he stayed, that they did figure out a way to keep him in house. They didn't. So this thing is off to a bad start. I can't say I'm surprised, but I can't quite say yet where it's going.
I don't know much of this ownership group. Do they have a history of going on the cheap? Do you know?
I mean, based on what we've seen so far with the Red Sox is the only way I can track it. This is Major League Baseball. There's no salary cap. You're in one of the bigger markets. There's no excuse. Frankly, I mean, you're expected to compete. You're expected to spend. That precedent was set, 25 years ago, first with Pedro, then with Manny in 2001, when he signed at the time the biggest deal in history. You could say what you want about Lucchino and them, and they caught some fire at times when they were here, but they're looking better by the day in comparison to this new group.
Mm. And you've seen the signing of Correa going from Cleveland to the Giants making a splash, and that's why I was concerned, because the Giants are in a tough division. The Dodgers are always going to be there. You assume San Diego will be there as well, so you got to compete. Now in the AL East, you got the Yankees, right, and they still got some stuff up in the air. Toronto's better. Tampa's solid. I mean, you got to be, if nothing else, you got to compete with the Yankees. I don't understand why they would even think that they can come to a town like Boston with the Red Sox, with having the success they had, over the last 10 years in winning championships, that they can get away with that.
Right. It'd be one thing if there was a Billy Beane coming in, or, somebody who's proven it, somebody from the Tampa front office, let's say, or even, that okay, we're going to play small ball. We're going to, use the metrics and try to save payroll and, get guys on base and play, move guys over. That'd be one thing, but that's not the case here. I mean, that's not how this roster looks right now. And again, there's no real indication that they're going to add speed, let's say, to the top of the order, or who knows. But, again, the last 20 years, the rule of thumb, so to speak, has been see what the Yankees are doing and then either match it or one up them. Never mind the rest of the league. It was always about competing with the Yankees because the Yankees always set the bar every year in the offseason. Right. And now we're seeing 2-3 years in a row where that has not even remotely been the case.
What do they need to start in the offseason? Because you talked about the pitching, but that lineup looks very thin and kind of old now. So
Right.
if they're going to make a move, where do they need to go first?
That's up for debate. I always said a starter, an ace. As we know, the last few years with whoever it's been hasn't worked out, whether it's been Sale, before that it was Price. Evaldi kind of overperformed for a while. And, they were able to mask their problems in the rotation for a long time based on the fact that they could hit the ball. I mean, they were in top 5 hitting categories across the board for a long time up until last year.
Right.
And now, the magnifying glass has been put on the staff. It's been put on that lineup. And, where do you start? Do you build with pitching and defense in the American League where, you've got the likes of Toronto and New York who are, just going to slug the cover off the ball? You try to bolster the middle of that order and bring in another power bat to replace a declining JD Martinez.
Right.
These are all legitimate concerns that you could argue are top concerns. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I would, if you're going to hit the reset button, I would say pitching and defense is as good of a place to start. Because again, the longer they wait here, the later it's going to be, the harder it's going to be to piece together and tape over the holes on both pitching and hitting.
Yeah, but I know a Red Sox fan that said, in Fenway Park, you got to be able to have some sluggers to be able to get it done. But I agree with you. They have to be able to pitch their way out of situations. You can't hit your way out of situations. Just ask the Yankees.
Right.
And, you got to be able to have those that stud release, middle relief, and that closer. So we'll see what happens. Talk with Nick Anastas here on the Basket News Radio Show. Nick, when you look at, and I think we talked briefly about this AFC East, I know you still believe in Buffalo in terms of even getting to the Super Bowl. Jets come up short. They're fumble away and winning that game against Buffalo, I think. And then Miami loses a couple of games. I had no idea they were going to lose to the Chargers. And then the Patriots go to Detroit and look better than Buffalo when they went to Detroit. So, this division is just so unpredictable. And why is that? Why is it that these teams you just can't get a feel for? Because a lot of people say, hey, I had a guy from Buffalo on last night and said, hey, let's not say that the Bills got this thing wrapped up. I know the Dolphins Bills this weekend, but what say you about this division? Why it's been kind of, the Bills are the standard now, but even with them, they've been kind of inconsistent, especially on offense.
I would say it's a good division, wouldn't you? It comes down to that. You got 4 teams that are 500 or better. The Bills have been good for a while. The Patriots have been very good for a long time and still pretty good. The Jets are one of the feel-good stories of the year, league-wide, and the Dolphins, I think, finally took that step forward.
Right.
So it's 4 good teams. You sprinkle in injuries like you do for every NFL team in every NFL season. You sprinkle in the November and December weather, especially in this division, with the exception of Miami. And, as a result, it's a week-to-week league. It really is. I think the Patriots played well with their backs to the wall against a wounded Arizona team.
That's what I meant, Arizona. That's what
right.
I meant.
I think Kyler Murray going out on the first series didn't help the Cardinals at all. Not to make an excuse for the Patriots, but their path to victory got easier after that first series. Colt McCoy, you could tell, just wasn't going to get it done. And again, that defense is still good enough to show up. The offense was the big concern. Again, after the Buffalo game, Patricia's head was, being called for. The fan base settled down a little bit. The heat a little bit resided, but he's still on the hot seat for sure.
Yeah.
They're in another really do or die spot, I think, on the road again against the Raiders. But, along with the Jets, who we talked about at length, with a stubborn defense, good enough to play spoiler, if not outright get in. Mike White with a gutsy performance. You said, a play or two goes their way. They might have come up with a road win there.
Right.
They're going to be in the hunt. And then Miami, I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not convinced about that defense. I'm not. They couldn't go out there and get a stop when they needed it against the Chargers.
Right.
Yes, they're explosive. Yes, they've got Tyreek Hill. That running game has been better. And Tua has been excellent. But, can they outscore teams in December and January? I don't think so. I think that defense is going to be at some point called upon to make a play, and they're a player away. I think they're a piece away. They're an X factor away on defense, and maybe they can address that in the draft. But, even if Miami gets in and goes one and done, that's still a step forward for them, for sure.
Right.
So, either way, I think the Jets had a good year. The Dolphins have had a good year. The Patriots remains to be seen with the final 4 games really tough. And again, back to the Bills. I still think they're in the driver's seat. Yes, they've had some ups and downs. They're figuring out, though, just like everybody else, I think. And, that they've proven that they don't need Allen to go bananas to beat you, by the way.
And they've been hurt on defense a lot,
Right, and getting healthier. They've got White back. They've got Tremaine Edmonds back. They've still got one of the better front fours in the league, one of the deeper front fours where they don't have to blitz a lot. They sit back in that nickel zone and wrap up. But back to my point on Allen, he doesn't need to go bananas for them to win.
Right.
He can throw the ball 27 times, 28 times a game.
But he's got to know that, though, Nick. He's got to know. And that coaching staff and what's his name? The quarterback they used to play.
Dorsey.
Dorsey, they got to know. They got to run the ball, man. They have to run the ball. They don't run the ball. Their ratio is way off. Poirier's been hurt. They need to keep Milano in the lineup. He's been hurt because he's a tackling machine on defense. But they need to be able to run the ball, and they don't do that consistently enough in terms of the play calling.
Right. I agree there. Now, to counter that, I think that the rookie, James Cook, has been playing well as of late and is starting to prove that he can handle it. He's still very undersized at barely 200 pounds. It remains to be seen how durable he is, how consistent he can be between the tackles. But again, if they can figure out a way to incorporate him, get him in space, and take some of that pressure off the passing game, then that's going to be key for them moving forward. And it seems like week by week, at least lately, he's taken over that role. Singletary, I think, has kind of fallen into the background. They cut Zach Moss a couple of weeks ago. And they spent, of course, a second rounder on Cook. So sink or swim, I think the rookie's going to have a big role in that backfield moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was talking with Nick Anastas here on the Bastard News Radio Show. Nick, who's the best team in the AFC? Cincinnati's on a. I hate for you to say it because I'm a Steelers fan, but Cincinnati's on a winning streak. So a lot of people would figure they are the team to beat right now if the playoffs started.
I think it's shaping up to be pretty much a 3-horse race. Where you got 3 teams in the top tier. That would be Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. I think you can make a stand-up case for all 3 of those teams. I think then you got the second tier, which is probably Miami, Tennessee, maybe the Chargers.
Ravens.
Right, the Ravens, of course. They're always there every year. And that's probably about it, right? I mean, maybe the Patriots, maybe the Jets. The rest of the so-called playoff contenders I would put in that second tier. But in the top tier, I think it's Cincinnati, Kansas City, and Buffalo. and I'm willing to listen to a case for all three.
Right. NFC. I mean, how people keep saying, and like you said, you got to beat who's in front of you. People keep denying and doubting Philly, and they keep winning. So is it Philly? Is it Minnesota, who had a bad loss to Detroit? Please don't say Dallas, because that's my brother's team. I couldn't take it. But who's the best team in the NFC?
I think it's Philly by default. And again, you look at what Philly's been doing. They're doing a lot of things very well.
Right.
Okay, we start at the quarterback spot. You got an MVP candidate by the numbers in Hurts. X Factor can get outside the pocket and make things happen with his legs, which can't be understated in today's NFL. And by the way, meanwhile, they run the ball pretty well with Miles Sanders as well.
Right.
They got one of the bigger, more physical offensive lines that can play in any terrain, and they upgraded their weaponry. I mean, you got the second year of Devonta Smith, who tore things up, as we know, at Alabama not long ago. They made the trade, of course, for Brown from Tennessee. He's fit right in at 6'4", 220 pounds. Goddard is hurt at tight end right now, but they haven't really needed him, frankly. And then again, that defense is good enough. They don't really have a star. They don't really have a household name over there, but they certainly have some grizzled veterans and a pretty good secondary.
Right.
And a couple of guys who can make things happen on the edge in Kaiser White, a pretty good mop-up linebacker in T.J. Edwards. So they've got pieces. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I think by default, based on the record, based on the fact that it looks like it's going to go through a cold Philadelphia in January, I would say the Eagles are the favorites. I think close behind them, I know you're not going to like to hear it, but Dallas is there. I think they're explosive enough. They turn you over enough on defense. They have stars on all three levels defensively. They are going to be a tough out, like it or not, unless they choke, which, of course, is on the table. And then the San Francisco quarterback situation, I think, is the only thing potentially holding back the Niners, because the Niners have pieces in place everywhere else.
Right.
They have one of the deepest defenses in the league. They have perhaps the best edge rusher in the league in Nick Bosa.
Right.
They got an all-pro linebacker, and then they have so much depth in the secondary. It doesn't matter when guys get injured. And then, offense, they made the big move midseason to get McCaffrey. That's helped. They need to keep Samuel healthy, A, and B, involved. And then we'll see about Brock Purdy. We'll see. I mean, that's the only thing I think potentially holding back San Francisco from being in that top-tier conversation in the NFC.
Well, with this coach, they got to a Super Bowl with a quarterback that he didn't show a lot of confidence in. They almost won it. It took Superman in Kansas City to come back to win it. Speaking of which, and we're talking with Nick Anastas here, I want to go back to the NFC South, because I had someone who said on the show, don't sleep on the Panthers. Now, when I look at the division, the Panthers are only a game behind Tampa. They got the same home record. Tampa's got a better record on the road. Their division is the same. Tampa's got a slightly better conference record. But my point is, can you make a case for Carolina to win that sorry division in the NFC South?
Yeah, probably, because it's the worst division in football. But, to play nice, I would say the Panthers can run the football. How about what Foreman is doing?
Right.
He's quietly, he was left for dead, by the way. He was a Doak Walker Award winner in college.
Right.
Amongst a very deep running back class, by the way. Comes into Houston, I think it was a second or third round pick 5 years ago, and then just kind of fell off. Never was quite healthy, never caught on, was on somebody's practice squad, I think, for a minute. Became Derrick Henry's backup last year and showed some signs of life, and then comes in and all of a sudden is a starting running back once McCaffrey got traded with Carolina. So He's responded well. He's had a 3-touchdown game. He's gone over 100 a few times. And that's the great equalizer, right? I mean, the old school rules, control the game by controlling the ball. Keep the other offense on the sideline And then, their defense is making plays. J.C. Horn, big pick last week to kind of set the tone on the road. Chin is back after missing most of the season. I think he's a difference maker on the back end. They've got everybody healthier again after a week off 2 weeks ago. They go in fresh, and they get a tough one in Seattle. So we'll see. I mean, that quarterback situation has been a carousel for a long time, really since Cam Newton left town. They have not found an answer there for the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm not sure that Sam Darnold is the answer either. He's played pretty well so far. But again, given the rest of the landscape in the division, Atlanta's, not very good, frankly. Tampa, well documented, old across the board, having problems, not playing well at the wrong time of the season.
Right.
New Orleans, I think, is also still in the conversation somehow.
I keep telling my son's a Saints fan. I keep telling him, in that division, you're not out of it. Like, he's
Right.
all in a panic mode. And so,
Well, again, good news is on the way with them because that old line is finally healthy up front.
right.
So I would say it's probably a 3-horse race. And maybe even Atlanta, gets back in. Who knows? But yeah, I think everybody's alive at this point. Remember, there's not 3 games left either. There's 4.
4. Right.
So people are still getting used to that. It's mid-December. The season's right around the end of the season's right around the corner. Not really. It's a month. It's a full month away, and
Right.
a lot, as we know, can happen in a full month in the NFL.
I want to finally switch gears to the NBA, and the Celtics are still playing lights out. I mean, let's be clear. They lost a couple in a row. They won one, but the rest of the field is kind of coming up. Milwaukee's playing better than anybody in the Eastern Conference right now. 8 of their last 10. My Sixers are doing a little bit better. Brooklyn's 8-2 as well in their last 10. Has it been any difference with what Boston's been doing? Because, again, I always talk sports with my son. I told him, the MVP is in Boston right now, and Tatum. And he's like, no, the MVP in Boston is Tatum, for real, in my opinion. And you look at what they've been doing, and he's under control, and he's like, okay, I can be an assassin when I need to be, or I can pass the ball. So has there been any difference in what they've been doing or it's just teams just playing a little bit better now?
I think it's just maturity. I think it's a superstar coming into his prime and understanding the game at a more intelligent level, which can only come through experience.
Right.
He's a guy now who's gone through the fires. I mean, he's been to the promised land. He hasn't gotten them over the line, but he's gotten a taste of the finals. He's gotten 2 tastes of the Eastern Finals, at least. Excuse me, 2 of the last 3 years. He's now in his mid-20s as opposed to early 20s, which makes a difference.
Right.
And he's got the supporting cast around him. He trusts his teammates. He doesn't have to, go for 35, but when he does, they're rolling. So I think it's just a natural progression of things. He's had the benefit of some very good coaches, whether it's been Coach K, whether it's been up until recently, obviously. He was a candidate for Rookie Coach of the Year last year. Right. And then, of course, really cut his teeth under the guy from Butler. So, right. It's natural progression more than anything. And same thing, I think, with Brown as well. Brown he took better shots, frankly, than Tatum up until this year. Now I think they're both really in sync with what each other's doing. The team is built for run and gun, which suits both of their styles. And again, them going for 30 plus on the same night with the team scoring 130 plus is all of a sudden becoming commonplace here.
Well, let me ask you this as a 3-parter, if I can. The first part was what I asked you before. Is the field coming up more so than the Celtics going down, number one. Number two, Milwaukee is the standard, it seems, and they've been playing really well. They're only a game behind if you started, the Eastern Conference. And when you look at, Smart, you talked about Brown and I think who's the MVP. He's still taking to me he's kind of taking a little step back where he's taking some shots he shouldn't, and they're still winning. But what say you about him as well?
That's always been the criticism with him, and that's fine. I think that's who he is at this point. That's just what he does.
Right.
I think they can live with that. When it comes and says, there's how many possessions during a game. You get one or two bad shots per game. They'll take that when they're getting the best perimeter defense in the league on the other side of the floor. So, he's a competitor. He likes to slash. He likes to go the hole. He likes to shoot the three. I mean, he likes to stay involved. And I think, again, the Celtics have learned to live with it. It has improved, by the way. It's still not perfect, but it's better than it was,
right,
let's say 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So, again, all things being equal, the Celtics are going to take the good with the bad when it comes to Marcus Smart.
And again, Milwaukee making their way up.
The rest of the field, yeah. Milwaukee's going to be there. I think Milwaukee is public enemy number one up here. Or let's put it this way. They're the most feared team in the East up here. No question. Brooklyn, nobody's talking about them.
They've won four. They've won 4 in a row. So
four in a row, great. Boston beat them 4 in a row when it mattered. Until further notice, they're just not LA. They're just not going to be taken serious.
They don't play any defense. That's their problem. They don't have any stop guys on there.
Right. They've got a laundry list of problems.
Right.
You said it. Philly is getting better and potentially could challenge. I'll give you that. But Brooklyn, I think, is yesterday's news. Miami is always a team to keep an eye on. I really respect what's going on down there. And I think they'll be heard from before it's all said and done. But the Clevelands and the Chicagos and all of them, they're just in the rearview mirror right now. The only real contender that puts a scare in people in the East amongst the Boston fan base is Milwaukee.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I mean,
deservedly so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Out west, the West is a little bit unpredictable because in the East you got the usual suspects at the top, and you have everything at the bottom. But again, I don't know if you think it's early. The Pelicans and the Grizzlies been doing it with a lot of injuries, both at 18-9, both at the top of the conference. The struggles with Phoenix, even though they're above 500, the Clippers, everybody thought they'd come out running. And oh my God, the defending champions where are they? Like in number 10th place. Like they wouldn't even make the playoffs at this point. So is the West, we're seeing the cream rise to the crop, or it's just too early and these teams will get it together? Just teams that you normally see, the Phoenix, the Golden States and those type of characters.
Yeah, I would say that's probably more of the case. You like to start with the young teams, the first two that you mentioned. I think New Orleans has been kind of putting pieces together a piece at a time, a year at a time, and that flower is starting to bloom, so to speak. The Grizzlies seem like every few years they always overachieve. Small market team that usually has a good coach. Obviously, having Mormon over there has been, a gift for them, and he is a legit bona fide star. But, the veteran teams will be there. I'm confident. Golden State seems like they're kind of going through the motions more than anything else. They're having, I think, a kind of a lineup identity crisis where they're experimenting with the rotation still, which is unusual for them.
Right.
Phoenix will be there. There's just too much firepower to hold them down. You know, and we'll see about the rest of the field. You know, we'll see how Utah eventually looks. It doesn't look good. You know, Denver's a team I think that had a window there for a moment, and I'm not sure how big that window is still open. You know, the Clippers, who knows? It's always seemingly Jekyll and Hyde there. But to answer your question, I think the veteran teams in the West are still trying to figure themselves out right now, and it's early in the process. Way too early to panic.
Yeah, there's a lot of upset losses and stuff. Again, I mentioned my son. He's a Golden State Warrior fan. He's in panic mode already.
We didn't even mention Dallas either.
Right. And they're like the 9th seed. They're 500. Just a final question with that. I call them Los Angeles Fakers. You know, at 11-16, they had a nice little run, but then they've been struggling a little bit again. If they don't get it done, do they stay with Darvin Ham and try to get it done, or they make a move yet again?
I have no idea. It's a mess. It's a mess, and it puzzles me, to be honest. I know they had their problems last year. You know, trying to mesh too many aging superstars never works. We've seen the track record in the NBA. We'll put it this way, it rarely works. And then I thought, you know, okay, kind of hit the reset button again. You still got your two main pieces there. See what happens. I'm sure they'll be better.
Because AD is playing out of his mind right now, but they were winning.
Enough.
Now they're losing, though.
Right. But they're proving it's not enough.
Right.
I mean, you know, you need competent role players that fit. And when you're constantly adjusting for really the last year and a half now, 2 years, you're screwing with the roster on a week in and week out basis. It's hard to find continuity for the players involved. So, you know, it starts with the front office. I mean, they've never been the same since Dr. Buss passed away, and that was almost 10 years ago.
Right.
You know, they got. I hate to use the word lucky, but I'm going to use it anyway. They got lucky by landing LeBron, and then you know the COVID-19 situation occurs, and you get basically simulated basketball in that bubble. That's what that was. That was simulated basketball. That was a hot practice. That's all that was. There was no.
And you and I talked about that in terms of not taking it away from them, but however, it might be a little asterisk.
Yeah, there has to be an asterisk.
Yes. Right.
And I'm not saying this to be, you know, because I don't like the Lakers. I do like the Lakers. I'm saying it because an asterisk means that there was an unusual circumstance, a noteworthy circumstance. And you're going to tell me the bubble was not a noteworthy circumstance?
Right.
So, of course, there's an asterisk. You know, and what have they done outside of that 1 year in the last 10 years besides crash and burn? They crashed and burned after Kobe, you know, even before Kobe retired. They weren't making the playoffs his last few years. You know, and then they're really, you know, in obscurity for a long time. They win the LeBron sweepstakes. But, oh, yeah, by the way, they don't make the playoffs again with LeBron in year one. So, you know, they win it in the bubble. The year after, they finish as a 7 seed. They go 1 and out, and then they don't make the playoffs last year. So, all in all, during the 4 years of LeBron's reign there, they make the playoffs twice, and they you know, get out of the first round once in the bubble.
Yeah,
so and I don't think that they have competent ownership. Frankly, they don't.
Well, Jenny took it over. And you know I think it was the Sun. I see you, T Mac. When it
the Sun was there, the Sun was there initially, and then the Sun got canned by the daughter.
Right.
The daughter was running the show. She canned her own brother just to show you what kind of a dumpster fire that was.
Right.
So and here are the results. They're basically in the same spot they were, trying to be relevant on a bad old team.
Yeah. T, before Nick needs to go, you know, we talking about the Lakers and that thing, and we were talking about the East too, by the way. And I'm not even gonna bring in Knicks winning 5 in a row because you get that pessimism on her. But when you look at the league, the East seems like it's taking the right road, like the cream is rising to the crop. Boston is clearly the best team. if not in the East, in all of basketball. And then in the West, if the playoffs started now, you ask my son, his Golden State Warriors wouldn't even make the playoffs. Neither will the Lakers, which is my other son. So it's really a weird dynamic in the West as opposed to the East.
Wake me up in February. No, it's. I mean, I think I've watched more college hoops than I have the NBA. Bits and pieces and stuff. It's a NBA is notoriously that marathon, and especially this time of the year. I mean, at the earliest, maybe after Christmas, you may start to get a feel, or maybe like around the All-Star break or something. But you know, I let's put it this way. The Lakers are like everybody, like housewives, notorious housewives of fill in your own city here. It's
Right.
just as up and down and whatever, they've got just as good. The crazy thing is they've got just as good a chance to make the playoffs as the Warriors do.
Well, the only thing I would say is that I agree with Nick is that they got pretty much the same roster. I think they got a better coach, right? In
That's
Darvin
that,
Ham.
well,
Right.
you got to give
And what he's
credit
doing
to.
too, and what he's doing too, and I see you, Luke. What he's doing too, Nick and T, is that I think the difference when they had a winning streak, I'll go back to you, Nick, is that he basically challenged AD to say, "Hey, I need you to play the five," which is what I've been saying the whole time. Make him play the five. Stop with these 3-pointers. Get in a post and make a shot. Stop with these little, the kid in Sacramento, and stop with that. Get in the post and make a shot, Nick. Be a five. Even though you don't want him defending fives because he might get in foul trouble, but offensively, make him be a five, Nick. I
Yeah,
think that's the biggest difference.
I agree, and I would say put him on either post. Put him in the high post too. He's got a great face-up game, but I think you're wasting him on the perimeter. I agree. If he's on the low block, he's going to demand probably a second defender. If they bring help, then okay, you swing it around and you open up a shot on the perimeter for a bona fide shooter.
Right.
If not, let him go to work. He's got the footwork. He's still got the strength and size to compete down low. And if they want to, again, use him as a four, then put him in the high post. Let him catch and face and run the offense that way. But you're right. I think at times he gets caught hanging around the three-point line where he's just not as effective. He should be more ball dominant in either post, demanding it. And that should be, I think, the start of the offense in terms of the rotation, moving the basketball rotation. You want it to go through your best player's hands. He's their best player at this point.
Right. And he's being aggressive. This is my team. Don't ask. Just do it. This is my team. I don't need to ask LeBron for anything. I'm the best player on this team at this stage in careers. Let me do it. Final question for you, Nick. Did the drama and the excitement of the World Cup, even though we had a young, inexperienced, that's what they want to throw around a lot, of this U.S. team bowing out against England, obviously. But the excitement and drama, do you think that has enhanced the game here in North America? Keep in mind, in 4 years it'll be on North American turf. Did it help or did it not make a difference? I mean, Morocco was a story in itself. But there are a lot of controversies, Qatar, Iran, and all that kind of stuff. But did it help or hurt in terms of the storylines, Messi and all that kind of stuff?
I don't think it moved the needle at all.
Wow.
In either direction. I think the only way for the needle to get moved forward is if they make a late run or a deep run. And that has not happened. I mean, it's been almost 30 years, LA, since the World Cup was in America in
Right.
'94. and that was the MLS was being created at the time. You had the World Cup basically coast to coast in this country. The time was then, and that was the talk. Oh, it's going to catch fire. It's finally going to catch on here, and here we are 30 years later, and it never happened. So Americans just have too many other entertainment options for soccer. They do. And frankly, superior sports. I know I'm giving my opinion here, but I, as an American, would much rather watch basketball, football. I'm going to hesitate hockey, and I'm going to hesitate with baseball, just because of the speed is so slow. But soccer just doesn't catch America's attention. It doesn't. It's the world sport. I understand that. It's big elsewhere. It's not going to get big here unless the U.S. makes a deep run. That could be the only scenario, like a Final Four scenario. And even then, I'm not convinced that would make any difference ultimately. Our best athletes are still playing the other sports, not soccer.
And, tell Andrew Dixon, who loves the sport, and others that. But, point taken. Nick, as always, my friend, I appreciate your time, man. You be well. Merry Christmas to you and your family. We'll talk with you very soon, sir.
You too. Thank you, L.A.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Let's do this quick, not even 30-second break. I want to bring Tony T. Mac McLean back in. And my good friend, Carl Luke Williams from OnAndOn.com on the show. It is the Bachelor News Radio Show. Stay tuned.
HBCU, Pro Sports Media Association, providing accurate and comprehensive coverage of historically black colleges and university sports, news, features, commentary, analysis, and multimedia content from the leading voices in black media. We are committed to telling the stories of HBCU athletes and programs. Visit us at hbcuprosportsmedia.com.
Welcome back to the show. I want to bring in my guests. Always good to have, as I mentioned, Tony T. Mac McLean and Carl Williams, the man, the myth, the legend, the also Steeler fan who's struggling like me.
Should I sit this out? I guess.
Yeah,
let y'all just do your wine and cheese party here.
Nah, we good, man.
And Lou, Lou, I think I said this to T the other day and on the air, because Tomlin hasn't had a losing season, and he kind of came in with Big Ben. If they lose another game, it's gonna be a losing season because they're 5-8. That he's done. I'm not saying he retires, but I think he leaves Pittsburgh on his terms.
Nah,
you don't think
not
so?
happening. No, not happening.
No.
Listen. Yeah, we playing a rookie quarterback, man. We started out with Mitch Trubisky. We're going to a rookie quarterback. He's not Roethlisberger, but he's pretty close. I like Pickett a lot. I think they're going to be fine. He's going to get better. Let's be clear. 3 turnovers in the red zone and a blocked field goal. We beat Baltimore. We beat Baltimore with 6-7. Still alive for the playoffs. So, what I love about Tomlin is not that he's never had a losing season. What I love about Tomlin is that the Steelers are always competitive. That's the worst thing you can have as a team that gets blown out. It's at the bottom of the wrong. The Tomlin has done it whether he's had a good team or not. He's had times when Ben has been out for the whole season and they've come close to the playoffs. As long as they stay close, I'm happy. I'm past the point of expecting them to make the Super Bowl every year, especially when they have a rookie quarterback. A rookie quarterback who I like a lot. I like him a lot. I like Pickett.
And the struggling offensive line. And I'm not saying that he should go. I'm saying that if he decided to go, I wouldn't be surprised because of when he came in. And incidentally, to your point, and that, well, I don't even know I should say that. Those Polish people in Pittsburgh want him gone. They've been wanting them gone for a long time.
Yeah, they want them gone from the beginning. They want them to be hired.
Hasn't he been fired basically 200 times a year
Right,
for
of
the
course.
last 5 years?
Of course, yeah. No, the hate has been there for quite some time related to him, the criticism and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I think Tomlin, and you know this, I love how he handles the press. I love how he handles any kind of public perception. He pays basically no attention to that whatsoever.
Right.
So I don't
And
think
they hate it. They call it slick talk, but he's just being real with it. He's
Yeah.
being real. I don't
Right.
have to answer that. This is what we're here for.
Right.
I'm going to answer that.
Right.
So we'll
No,
see.
I don't have any problem. I don't care what the so-called Pittsburgh public thinks of him, and you're right. It's the white public primarily, that would love to have him out of there. He's not going anywhere, in my opinion. He's not going to step away. This is his opportunity. Really, I think the kind of guy he is. Okay, I've ridden Ben for 15 years. Okay, right. Let me show you that it wasn't about Ben. It was really about the fact that I know how to coach in this league. Like Brian Flores when he left Miami, he said, "Look, I know what I am. I'm a football coach, and I'm a good football coach." Mike Tomlin is the same. He knows the game. He gets the guys prepared. I don't know if you saw Mike Wilkes' comments about him because he playing Panthers this week. So I think he's going to stay. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he'll spend another 5 years, and depending upon how well Pickett grows into the role, which he says he's doing on a weekly basis. I hate to see him suffer a second concussion, but we got to show up the line. We got to get some young boys to play defense, some younger guys to play on the defensive side. That's going to be our two picks. It's going to be a offensive lineman and maybe a lineman or a linebacker, some young stud. We'll be fine. I'm not worried at all. 5-7, 5-8 doesn't bother me, especially with a rookie quarterback. Who else has a rookie quarterback that's even playing these days?
That got 5 wins, or at least 4 wins. I think Trubisky got 1, or whatever the case may be. Hey, Lou, listen. So Jackson State, according to what you have reported, is a name T.C. Taylor is football. He's an alum. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, played quarterback there or wide receiver. You can correct
both.
Right.
Both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got to go back, and I talked to T off air about this with the whole Deion thing, and the pro Deion is like he brought something to Jackson State, right? And so they already has history. We know all the players that have come out of it that have been great. But he put them on the map in terms of the undefeated seasons and all that celebration ball, which will take place at the time of this broadcast this weekend, and did that. But the con is like Deion said, he got offended when I think it was Carnell Maynor or somebody said, "You're not really." It wasn't Carnell Maynor. It was
Eddie Robinson.
Eddie Robinson.
Eddie Robinson. That said, not to be confused with the real Eddie Robinson, but said you're not really HBCU.
He ain't swag. Let's come on and say it. He ain't swag. That's what he said.
Yeah, right.
He
you're
ain't
not
swag.
and all that.
Mhm.
But Lute, he also, but the other thing about Deion that some of us, including myself, had a problem with is that he said, paraphrasing, and Mike Patton T had, corrected me, is that, I'm here to make, to grow and mature men. He didn't say that in the beginning. When in the beginning he was saying, he was kind of alluding to, I'm here to mature and grow HBCU men. And then as he left Lute, he said, well, I'm here to, really work with men. Now it's PWI men. So
he said that black men at PWI. He said 70% of college football is black men. You think I'm not going to be dealing with black men in Colorado?
Right. So, but my thing is that,
Can I just
hold on, T, real quick. Hold on. Because I wasn't I'm a Florida State fan. I wasn't a fan of Deion at all. Certainly not at Dallas, the enemy, and at San Francisco when he played in the pros. So he just has this way of he's pushing his brand to me. Not so much of the players. I get what he might leave, but also those kids gonna go in that portal and they're gonna go to Colorado. I never expected him to go to Colorado, Luke. But what say you about how this whole thing is kind of worked out at the end of the day?
Well, as you can imagine, I've heard every side of the Deion saga. Everybody's opinion, the haters who hate what he did, hate how he left, think that they were lied to, they were played, they were pimped, that HBCU culture was pimped, all this kind of stuff. And of course, I've heard the other guys who say, who wouldn't take a $5 million job? I even say Eddie Robinson, who is a friend of mine and a guy that used to work with me. We gave Eddie his first job doing color commentary for HBCU games. So I know Eddie well. If Eddie was offered a $5 million contract after he's making $275 at $275,000 at Alabama State, I'm not sure he'd stay SWAC. He would probably take that $5 million job himself. That's one way I look at it. The other way I look at it is that this is all tied up in who Deion Sanders is. There's probably no one on earth that could have done what he did at Jackson State. There are plenty of NFL quality coaches that could go to Jackson State and probably do a very good job. But I doubt very seriously whether there's any coach, black or white, who could flip Travis Hunter, that could have flipped the number one guy in the country, according to most, to come to HBCU. They could come close to that, but you got to have a combination of a lot of different things going for you to attract the number one recruit. I mean, most people think that was the most stunning thing that he did while he was at Jackson State. And listen, he had to trade on the fact of who he was, what he had been, not only as a player, what he had been as an entity, as a brand, and the people who came and followed him because of that. All of those transfers that he got, not only Travis Hunter, but Kevin Coleman, who was a top 20 player, other people that he flipped. This was all about the personality that is Deion Sanders. And listen, I say, you have to, if you look at all of the things that he said a lot of different things in his 2+ years at Jackson State about things that he was going to do and things that he was going to be about. But he was kind of truthful in this sense. He said, for example, on 60 Minutes, if he got an offer, he was certainly going to entertain it. He basically said, I'm not stupid. I'm going to entertain an offer if they give it to me, depending upon the circumstances. But an offer of 5 years, $5 million, some say up to 5.9, and maybe more than that with incentives, you'd have to be, I don't know what coach there is in America of any ilk, any color or whatever that would turn down a jump. Let's say, people say that maybe he may have been able to make $1 million at Jackson with all the incentives he had, if he had a bunch of incentives related to attendance and everything else. So I'm saying you got to look at it this way. Where was Jackson State for the last 10 years? Basically non-existent. They weren't a factor at all in the SWAC. Nobody was figuring them to be amongst the best teams in the SWAC. Not only does he win back-to-back championship, he breaks the attendance records for FCS football. He every week is drawing 50,000 to Jackson State home games, 50,000+ at homecoming. He's going around the SWAC creating all of this buzz. So, you can complain if you like, but you better be grateful. Now, whether that's going to continue is the best question, or is there a way for it to continue? I don't think so. I don't think that this was a bump that you're going to, it was a rise and this come down. Like a lot of people say, okay, he benefited Jackson State. Yep, he maybe benefited the SWAC because the SWAC got an extra football contract, not only ESPN, but they're now on the Grio, HBCU Go TV. They had a full 11-game schedule that was on TV this year. So that was primarily Deion Sanders. After him, that I think it's going to be hard to continue. Here's one of the biggest things is that if his thing was come to HBCUs, he got Travis Hunter and his son and others to come, but now he goes to Colorado and all those guys transfer back to FBS schools.
Yeah.
Then where is the long-term effect of what Deion did? So it's so many things that are thrown into the mix from my perspective. I don't take it as a negative. I think he's an individual, a special individual that made a choice. You can criticize it if you like. You cannot deny what he accomplished on the field, off the field, in the media. When was the last time an HBCU coach gets hired and he's on what's the morning show? Good Morning America or the Today Show.
Mm-hmm.
There have been plenty of NFL former players that have become head coaches, and even Hall of Famers like Larry Little and a couple of others. But nobody has gotten that kind of publicity, that kind of courage. So you got to thank him, and it's going to be up to the SWAC and to the rest of those conferences to now say, okay, how can we capitalize on what Deion said? They would have loved to have kept him. I would have loved to have seen him stay for another 2 or 3 years. He said, give me 2 years, I'll challenge Alabama. That was like, that would have been a dream come true. Because, we go back 40, 50 years, they would have beat the hell out of Alabama. As one black man beat the hell out of Alabama named Sam Cunningham. The FAMU teams of Jake Gaither probably could have run circles around Florida State, and Miami if they put all those 3 teams together, because they had all them black folks that are now going all over the country. So I would love to have seen it. I did not want him to leave. I was hoping that he would not leave. But I was on a conference call with Shaq Harris and Doug Williams, and Shaq called me on the phone and said, Luke, I got somebody want to talk to you. It was Doug. And Doug said, it's just math, Luke. It's just math. No, he said, it's just arithmetic, Luke. It's arithmetic. It's $5 million.
Let me just say this to T. I had said it at the beginning, and Luke didn't hear it. I didn't think he was going to stay. Everybody kept saying, okay, his kids play there. I thought 2 years. I really did. I didn't think he's prime. He's got a brand. It's no way he's staying that long. I'm surprised he took Colorado, and best of luck with that. But I didn't think he was going to stay, even if his kids were there, because if his kids are there with this portal, his kid are probably going to leave anyway or whatever. All the talent's going to leave anyway. So I didn't expect that. But what I think people are upset with is that his rhetoric on one side was different to what he lived out to. And I think that's the biggest thing. Criticize or not.
Yes or no. But see, what's interesting, and I think Luke will appreciate this. Think of where Jackson State was 10 years ago. I'll use when Robert Hughes resigned. Now, you may know this better than me, Luke. Deion's like the 6th, 7th coach since Hughes resigned.
Wow. Yeah, the guy who was the Secretary of Education, Harold Jackson.
Rick Comegys, who actually won their last title, and that wasn't good enough for the folks out there either, which is another thing that needs to be brought up.
Right.
There's so many parallels in this whole Colorado thing and Jackson State, in the sense of 2 great football powers, loads of history, have had Hall of Famers on and off the field, went through some hard times, and the one instance, and see, to me, the one thing that's always been the one thing that I've been trying to figure out from day one. I kind of have an idea, but I've always still sort of aloof, in the sense of, did Jackson State come to Deion, or did Dion come to Jackson State in regards to the job? Clearly, Colorado saw the recruiting power, what he was able to do in 2.5 years, and said, we need to get this guy to help turn us around. And I think that's what the impetus. I think, to me, that's what got him his contract and what have you. And we've all been around HBCU sports long enough to know that, unfortunately, when it comes down to the cash, I mean, look, that $5 million, I hate to say it, that's probably the football equivalent of the SWAC football thing for the years. And again,
Right.
it's sort of, but see, therein lies the problem. It's very easy to go after Dion here, and I get it, and it's understandable. And it always seems like we go back to this, whether it's you, me, or someone. When do the HBCUs finally, really wake up and realize, when are you going to use that opportunity for having your athletics help you increase on your academics? They hate on Hampton when they move laterally. They hate on A&T when they move laterally. But the thing is, they recognize the things that we've been talking about for years, and instead of embracing that, they sort of ridicule them. And even to a certain extent with the whole Dion thing, because if nothing else, just bringing the high profile to HBCUs. Look, we know the history's there. We've been arguing this for years. HBCUs don't have to take a back step to anyone in regard to their history, in regard to their impact, and what have you. Just because, let's come right out and say it, just because mainstream white media finally decided to check out HBCU sports for the last 2.5 years because of Dion, look, they're always late to the party anyway.
Right, sure, of course.
At some point, when does the accountability factor have to kick in for these schools so that the Dions and others of the world don't leave? Because, the sad thing here is that another great black head coach now winds up leaving HBCUs.
Well,
that's the bigger thing.
Yeah, but one thing, Tony, is when did we decide that we're not going to celebrate an HBCU coach who gets a Power 5 job?
Exactly.
We've been decrying the fact that we have excellent coaches. We have go back historically. We don't have to mention all of the great ones, but that never got this opportunity. And when did we decide all of a sudden, for whatever reason, that if he leaves the HBCU, every coach that is in HBCU sports would like for it to be a stepping stone to a much higher paying, much higher profile position, and when, for example, a few years ago, when Rod Broadway defeats Jay Hobson, when A&T defeats Alcorn State in the first, Celebration Bowl, Hobson gets hired by Southern Miss. Broadway says that he got a couple of interviews. He said he knew that he wasn't going to get hired at South Carolina and a couple of other places. He went to the interviews, but the idea is that when these guys come down, whether it's a Broadway who spent the great majority of his career as a Division I assistant, he came down to the HBCU ranks. And I'll tell you, when he decided to retire, he told me, if I could do it all over, Lute, I would have stayed at Carolina, where I was responsible for 12 offensive linemen. And I was paid twice as much as I was paid to be a head coach at A&T and have to deal with 80 to 100 players, So in most cases, they come to the HBCU ranks to kind of prove themselves and then move on. Some of the most successful HBCU coaches have moved on. They didn't become head coaches. The coach at Morgan State won one championship, took a job in the NFL as a wide receivers coach. The word is now that he's going to be the new coach at Delaware State. That's Lee Hall. That was at Morgan State. There was a guy at Central, North Carolina Central. Jerry was his last name. I can't think of his last name. He battled A&T for 3 straight years before he took a job as the offensive coordinator at Rice. So we have to celebrate when they use, even if you call it using the HBCUs. That's the reality. You know, who doesn't want LA to get hired by ESPN and pay him a $3 million contract? He'll be off here so quick he wouldn't know what to do. We'd be like, LA, what about Luke, man? You used to know me. Now you don't know me no more, man.
But listen, Luke,
Stephen A. tries to, you know, keep his Winston-Salem State thing out there. But, you know, he's all involved in, you know, taking things to the next level. So, you know, I'm not mad at him. You know, like I said, I would love to have seen him stay and really revolutionize. I think he was one of the people that could have revolutionized it. And you're going to need somebody like that. So let me tell you what they need to do. They need to be looking at Michael Vick. They need to be looking at Jerry Rice. They need to be looking at, you know, they one time they said Marshall Faulk was a candidate for the Southern job before Southern decided to hire a Dooley.
And Luke, don't forget the guys from within, because, you know, me personally, if I was Jackson State, I would have fought tooth and nail to keep Dennis Thurman as the head coach. Personally, no disrespect to TC Taylor, because I think TC's going to be a great. But
Dennis Thurman as the defensive coordinator at Jackson State might have been making $85,000. I don't even know if it was 6 figures. He's going to make $350,000 as an analyst, as a defensive analyst at Colorado. And Deion said, you know, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my assistants. You know, there was a big hoopla and all kinds of stuff when Joe Taylor said, when he left to take the job at Florida A&M, and he told the president of Hampton, I'll stay at Hampton if you'll pay my coordinators 6 figures and pay my position coaches $75,000. And the word is that Hampton president, Dr. Harvey, said, you know, lost your mind. And that's when he left and went to Florida A&M. You know, we have to acknowledge and accept the fact that the HBCUs, Deion did as much as anyone could do, having a 60,000+ seat stadium that he could fill up. And listen, you talk about history. Jackson State has been leading FCS in attendance for the last 30 years, but they never got into the 40,000 like they did last year. 42,000 a game last year, 43,000 a game this year. You know, so, you know, I congratulate him with a job well done. I don't blame him one bit for taking this job, and I think anybody that does is crazy.
Well, let me just say this in terms of the other side. Some people say if he's getting 40,000 in a seat of 60 and he's leading it, he's like the world's tallest midget, number one. But then number two, also, Lou, again, the problem is that if he made the move, people can't wrap their minds around Colorado. They can wrap their minds around Texas A&M or something, but Colorado, he's going to be challenged. And who's to say if he even gets that opportunity, prime or not, that he gets that opportunity if they go 0-11?
Well, no. He doesn't. You're right. He doesn't get that. I said when he took the job at Jackson State, on the way back from their first game when they played Edward Waters in that abbreviated spring schedule, we had a debate. I was on radio shows on the way back from that game back to North Carolina, talking about that he would only stay at Jackson State if he wins. Listen, here's the bottom line for me. He's only going to be at Colorado for a minimum of 2 years. Deion is in this to get his son to the NFL, you know. And once he gets his son out of college into the NFL, I don't think he's going to have any great desire to coach. You can talk all you want to about, you know, he's going to pour into black kids. Yeah, he's going to pour into black kids, but he's primarily pouring into his son, in my opinion. I've run leagues before, and I've seen parents who are gung ho as long as their child is playing, and as soon as the child is not playing, they go to the wayside. Deion has been involved in coaching and everything else, bringing his son along, as we all do if we have children. We want our children to experience the minimum what we've experienced and maximally want them to exceed what we've experienced. And I think that's his attitude with Shedeur. He is going to stay with Shedeur for these last 2 years, you know, and I think after that, his desire to coach is going to wane. That's, you know, I had a discussion with my 3 sons about whether an NFL team would hire him. And I said, an NFL team is not going to hire him because they don't know that he's committed to coaching. You know, I mean, you know, Jeff Saturday might get that opportunity, but you know, you're not going to pull Jerry Rice off the sidelines, off of doing commercials, you know, or being a commentator to be a head coach in the NFL unless they know that he's going to be coaching. Saturday's not there for a hot minute. In theory, he's going to be there for a while. He's committed to coaching. So I don't think Deion has yet proven to NFL entities that he wants to coach and is there to be a coach for the rest of his life, like the Mike Tomlins and the Mike Wilks of the world who've paid their dues and done all of that. So that was the question that my sons asked me. Do you think an NFL team would hire him knowing what he's done so far? And I said no, because I don't think he's committed to coaching. He's going to coach his son. He's going to coach his son. You know, and listen, you know, let him struggle some at Colorado. Let's see if he'll pull his son when his son starts to struggle at Colorado. You know, he told him in the press conference, Shedeur, stand up. There's your quarterback. And then he threw in, oh, of course he's going to have to earn it. No, he's not. No, he's going to be the quarterback because my daddy is the coach. Not that Shedeur doesn't have talent. He's a decent mid-level Division I quarterback now going to the a Power 5 conference. We're going to see. I wrote a story trying to tell him, you know, because Deion about 70 games in talked about he should be considered for the Heisman. I said, be serious. Are you serious? Come on. You have not seen anything. You know, Steve McNair was considered for the Heisman, and he should have been. He wasn't showing me.
That's nepotism, if anything.
What I tell a lot of folks is you got to separate prime from Deion.
Right.
When he was saying that he had the greatest Jackson State recruiting class of all time, that was prime talking.
Right.
When he was talking to the kids about what he was going to do and everything, that's Deion. And I think that's the thing. That's the thing we have to, you know, get the balance from. And I agree with you 1,000%, Lou. The NFL, personally, NFL wants no part of Deion because, see, Deion's team, it would be Deion and the fill-in team here, and they don't want that. Look, they're not crazy about black quarterbacks. So you can imagine what they think about black quarterbacks.
Well, Deion said he's made it clear. I don't want to coach in the NFL because I don't want to be coaching guys making more money than me. You know? And he's even complained about the NIL, that some of the guys with the NIL are like pro athletes because they're making money. You know, so my thing is, you know, let's see first of all, see what he does in Colorado. I told Steve Gaither, who was traveling with me, we went to that first game. I said he can't go 6-5. You know, he said that first year when he was playing with the guys he had not recruited, he was like, you know, give me to the fall and you won't be able to touch me because I'm bringing in some dogs. And he was right. He brought in between the transfers and the recruiting class, he had the best team in the SWAC the last 2 years. Excuse me, but he didn't dominate the SWAC this year. He went undefeated. But, you know, that idea that they were going to go out on the field and because they were coached by Deion and he was talking about all these great expectations of dominate. They didn't dominate people. They beat Alabama State 16-3. They beat somebody else. It was a single-digit game. I think it was 16-7. So don't be surprised if Central surprises them and we send him out kind of on a you know, bye-bye. You came twice, but you didn't reach the top of the hill.
Well, I want to get to that, but to both of your points, I guess he never seen Walter Payton play.
Right.
So the greatest recruiting class. Let's not be real with that.
Well, there was no recruiting class when Walter Payton came. Nobody was talking about Jackson State's recruiting class when they had Robert Brazile, Walter Payton, Jackie
right.
Slater, Lem Barney. You go down the list. You know that nobody was. They didn't have a ESPN then to 5-star rating and all that kind of stuff because HBCUs had all of the 5 stars. If you go back and look at it, so
absolutely,
yeah. So he can make that statement in these times that Jackson State certainly has never had any class like since we've been rating recruiting classes, so to speak.
Yeah, Luke. So what did we expect from TC Taylor? I mean, alma mater, like I said, quarterback, wide receiver. What's the expectations after Deion and in your opinion in terms of him being there? That what does he have to do? Did he have to go 9-2 next year? I mean, what's the expectations?
Remember, by the time Deion finishes taking
Did we lose Luke?
I think we lost Luke. He'll call back in.
No. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Luke. We'll get him back on. What are the expectations, Tony?
I think they're still, depending on what winds up happening with the portal, I would think that they're still going to be the team to beat, personally. But a lot's going to have to do with, because here's the thing that I think people keep forgetting. I always go back to something that Leon Carey said a few years back when Winston left the CIAA and came back. And basically every coach in the league, basically bitched and moaned and said, they're a Division I team. They don't need to be here. And Commissioner Carey said, hey, y'all need to stop whining and recruit. And basically since then, the CIAA is, it was always competitive, but even more so. I don't think you're going to have, let's put it this way. The one thing that all the SWAC coaches agreed upon was that they all wanted to kick Deion's tail. Now that's still there. They still want to beat each other now, but now they maybe this ignites the rest of the SWAC even more so to be competitive. But it's Jackson's still going to be a viable Jackson's, to me, is still going to be a viable team here.
No, So before Stan Luter called me and so rudely interrupted me, I was going to say that Jackson State is going to go back to what they were before. By the time Deion raids the coaching staff and the roster, they're going to be back where they were before, in the middle of the pack of the SWAC. They're not going to be
very disappointing. It's very disappointing. It is what it is.
Yeah, He came. We saw. He left. You know, and he's taken. If he takes Shadua, he takes Travis Hunter, he takes Kevin Coleman. He probably takes a couple of other guys that from Jackson State. Jackson State's going to go back to be. Again, I'm trying to tell you that Jackson State was not that far ahead of everybody else in the conference. They were not that far ahead. Did you hear Eddie Robinson after he lost to? He said, "I hope he comes back next year. I hope he doesn't take a Power 5 job, and I hope he brings us in for homecoming." Look, the coaches in the SWAC are not slouches. They are good. There are good coaches in the SWAC, and they're
absolutely
good in fact, and their recruiting has stepped up as a result of Deion. Everybody wanted a piece of Deion. They wanted to knock him off the ledge. Now they're not going to have to be competing against Deion. It's going to be up to TC Taylor, and TC Taylor, let him sign a 5-star or 4-star. Let's see how many of those he signs. And if not, they're going to be right back in the mix with the SWAC, along with I think the team that steps forward is probably Florida A&M, who's been a step behind Jackson State the whole time. Alcorn State. It's there's a lot of rumblings out there that Alcorn State might be getting rid of Fred McNair. I know you all have heard by now that Sam Washington and North Carolina.
Yeah, A&T. Yeah, that was a surprise.
I don't know if you've heard that Bashal Tootin, the 1,000-yard rusher for the Aggies, is into the transfer portal, as has BJ Davis out of South Carolina State, the outstanding linebacker for South Carolina State. Should have been the defensive player of the year. I understand he's already signed with East Carolina. So everything that Deion did about bringing players and high value recruits to HBCUs almost has been obliterated, overnight by his decision to go to. So why was I going to HBCUs, and why should HBCUs be given all this love if at a moment's notice you leave an HBCU and go right back to where you went to school, to a Power 5 like you went to Florida State? So this is the real world. This ain't no dream world. In the dream world, Deion would have stayed there for 3 years, and Jackson State would be beating Alabama 3 years from now. But
Right.
that's just a dream world. If that happens, and God knows I'm 68 years old, I don't know if I'll live to see it if it ever happens. But it's going to take another Deion Sanders, and I'm not sure there's another Deion Sanders out there.
With that
Combination.
that combination of the brand and everything else. Let's
Exactly.
not forget, I wouldn't say pressure, Lou and T, but Eddie George, who's played in the league, and Tennessee State, they had little rough spots and stuff. So,
But wait a minute. But on that point, LA, the teams that gave Jackson State the hardest time this year were both coached by ex-NFL players, Eddie
Right.
Robinson and Eddie George.
right.
And they know as much about what it takes to make it into the NFL as Deion Sanders did. Eddie George was a Heisman Trophy winner. Deion didn't win the Heisman, and he had a fabulous NFL career, as did Eddie Robinson. So I would love to see. I was surprised that, and I think Ashley Robinson, the AD at Jackson State, felt a little pressure from Deion recommending that TC Taylor take over the team. I think Ashley would have loved to have made another splash of bringing someone in. I don't think he could have gotten anybody of Deion's ilk, but someone with NFL experience that would continue this draw, because TC Taylor, even though he had a great college career, he did not have an NFL career. Even though he broke records, he was an outstanding quarterback who switched to wide receiver and was better at wide receiver than he was at quarterback. He had like 88 receptions his senior year at Jackson State. So, I just believe that Jackson State will go back to being not maybe a cut above like they have been for the past couple of years. I think it'll be, much more of an even playing field with Deion out of there.
Couple of quick questions before you go. Talking with Luke Williams, Tony T. McClain here on the show. Luke, I heard from the SWAC commissioner who said, and I'm paraphrasing, basically he said in the next couple of years, they can, in terms of revenue, do better than most FBS schools and programs. We saw A&T. I see you shaking your head. Saw A&T leave and Hampton and everything. Is that a pipe dream? But where's he getting that from? Because I've asked some people before. Some people said yes, and obviously you don't agree with that.
Well, let me put it like this. For the last 8 to 10 years, the ESPN has had kind of an exclusive deal with both the MEAC and the SWAC. They have first dibs on games, and they have basically prevented any other network from carrying their games. It's until a guy by the name of Byron Allen entered the fray.
Right.
Byron Allen came in, and with Dr. McClellan's blessing, Dr. McClellan told ESPN, if you don't allow me to do deals with other networks, don't talk to me when your deal is up with me, because you allow every other conference in the country, Big Ten, ACC, SEC, to have as many deals. They can have an ABC deal, a CBS deal, and a Prime, Amazon Prime deal, or whatever else they want. But you're trying to some kind of way minimize us being able to maximize our revenue. Now, again, this is the Deion Sanders effect. The Deion Sanders effect, they wait where ESPN may have kind of dismissed him. Deion, when ESPN picked their games, they had all of Deion's games except one. So and they said, okay, we'll allow you to let a network in, Byron Allen's The Griot Network and HBCU Go TV. They had a Jackson State game on their schedule, did Byron Allen, but then ESPN said, we want that one too. So ESPN made sure that all of Prime's games were going to be on either ESPN Plus or ESPN2. And if you heard Deion said, I don't want to be on ESPN 13. I want to be on ESPN. Why ain't we on ESPN? We drawing more than half the teams they put on there. You know, why can't we be on ESPN 1? I mean, on the main ESPN. So my point is this, that McClellan is basically piggybacking. And again, you said pipe dream. You said it. I didn't. I think it's more of a pipe dream than a reality. Is that he is anticipating that this big surge that has come about because of Deion is going to continue. You know, I don't think it's going to continue. I do not think they're going to match that. I think that there are advanced revenue opportunities because of HBCU Go or the Griot coming on and carrying games. And for those who don't know, they carried a full slate of 11 SWAC games this year, and they're carrying a full slate of SWAC basketball games starting in January. Every week, double headers on Saturday, women and men games that are going to be on the Griot and on HBCU Go TV that Byron Allen has brought in. So I think what McClellan is making reference to is that the days of warehousing the SWAC's games are over. And from that standpoint, he does. I think he does have an opportunity to increase revenues, but I don't think that it's going to be sustainable. I think it's not going to be sustainable to the level that he's talking about. I think that with Deion, the sky would have been the limit, because it would have trickled down eventually to the rest of the colleges, the rest of the programs. You know, in not only in the SWAC but outside of the SWAC. But I think he was riding the wave and he was feeling his oats, kind of. And I think that that's going to be it's going to be very difficult to achieve that. He's going to increase the revenue, I think, because of the interest of a national network. Let me tell you, if you don't know, you know that Byron Allen bought a black news channel and turned it into the Griot. It's a national, what Byron Allen's been doing for the last 25, 30 years is developing these relationships with all these affiliates all over the country. So in addition,
and they've been trying to push him out too, Lou, as you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you know how that goes.
But in addition to the Griot, he's got all of these independent stations in Iowa and Idaho and the state of Washington and Oregon that he's been running the Comics Unleashed and, you know, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
And he got primarily all the judges shows too, by the way.
Exactly. So they're a new player and a significant player. And I can tell you that what he did in football, what he got for doing those 11 games in football, he doubled down in basketball. And he sent his people out to say, we don't just want the SWAC. We're talking about now he's going to be bigger and better than even BET was, because of all of these affiliate relationships that he has, these CBS and other what they call duopoly stations, that he can make a killing on games. And as you all know, for a plethora of reasons, the George Floyd, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and everything else, HBCUs have gotten more philanthropic contributions. They've gotten more publicity. They've gotten more partnerships with corporate entities. So that's what McClellan is talking about when he says, you know, we're going to match that. There's that possibility. I just think that a lot of it was Deion Sanders, and if you don't have a Pied Piper like a Deion leading the way, I'm not sure that it's going to reach the kind of level that McClellan is talking about. I hope he's right, and he certainly knows more about it than I do. But listen, when everybody's signing on, when Deion is the Pied Piper, because, you know, I'm writing for HBCU Game Day, I think we did a survey the other day. The top 20 stories, the top 30 stories, 27 of them had Deion Sanders' name in it, according to the Google Analytics. Now, I think one of the reasons they brought me on is because, I'm not committed to just writing stories about Deion. I let somebody else do that. I want to write about the HBCU sports in general, across the board, So that's it's a long answer to your question, but I have my doubts, but he may know more than I do in terms of these corporate folks. And when they step up, the idea is they stepped up with Deion. You don't sign them for 1 year. You try to sign them for 5 years if you can. So I hopefully that's what he's done. Hopefully
and T, a lot of us call it, as alluded to, these companies that guilt money. If in this climate, in this Black Lives Matter, better get that money.
Yeah,
they ready to give it out, T. And then the other thing is, what I don't understand, and then Lou, you can follow up, and I won't keep you guys much longer, is that we've talked about, I think the three of us have talked about sponsorship. Why can't either HBCUs or a conference or a Jackson State, when they had Deion there, have Southwest Airlines, the official airline of the, you know what I'm saying?
This is something that's been talked about for the last, God, how many years in regards to this? And for all the publicity and whatever that Deion has been given credit for, a lot of this also, and forgive me for saying this, is it sort of exposes the laziness of what's been going on in HBCU sports within some of these schools in regards to pushing the product. Right. The one that, if you don't remember Deion for anything the last 2.5 years, he pushed product. He pushed the product. And the thing is, in some instances, it sort of goes back to what Lute said in regard to what the SWAC is saying now. Now, all of a sudden, the SWAC wants to try to whatever. Why did it take so long? To me, the product has always been there. Now, yes, having Deion there makes it a little more high profile, but see, now, to me, the pressure is on the SWAC and these other schools and all the HBCU schools now. Now you want to go now you want to go beyond Deion now. Now you want to be able to let folks know about the great coaches that are going that are there now, the great players that are there now. It shouldn't have taken the Deion effect for you guys to do this. And see, that's sort of the nasty story that nobody, and that's sort of the nasty thing that nobody wants to talk about in the backlash of, kicking Prime as he's going out the door. Yeah, you can, like Chappelle said, haters gonna hate, but what are you gonna learn from that? Because let's put it this way, if the SWAC, we'll just use the SWAC as an example. If the popularity of the SWAC and whatever takes a backseat within the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to blame Deion for that too?
Right. You certainly can't do that.
No. And see, my thing is, to me, this is as corny as it may sound, to me, this is a seize the day moment for HBCU sports.
Right.
This is an opportunity that has been out there, but it sort of took, it took, in a sense, an outsider for them to recognize this. And I think now, to me, if I'm an AD or an SID or what have you, I'm looking at this and saying, how do we cultivate this? How do we not let this die? Because if anything now, him leaving now, that should be more, if you were galvanized to want to kick his ass on the field, this should want to galvanize you to beat everybody's ass on the field.
Right.
Well,
And I
well,
think too, Lou, I was gonna say, you get certain schools and institutions like Hampton, maybe even A&T, they kind of get it right, and then we run into, excuse me, people that we know, we don't have the name, that were SIDs at schools forever doing everything, and they just kind of let them go, and they just kind of go through the motions. So certain schools, to T's point, kind of get it. Certain institutions don't get it, and it almost seems like it's gonna be like that, in the long haul, whether it's a Dion coming on campus or anybody else.
well, one thing that was reminded when I was listening to T is that in order to capitalize on this, one thing that Dion did was it gave HBCUs a face. He was the face of HBCUs for the last 2 years, and he was brash. That nobody's ever called Dion humble or
Shy, bashful.
He made statements. He made statements like the SWAC and me actually joined together and form a super conference. He made statements that nobody else would make. Now, again, I was hoping that maybe Ashley Robinson, but he didn't do it. But one of these ADs, and now the coach, the athletic director at North Carolina A&T is going to have a chance to do it. The A&T is moving into the CAA for football next year. They're in the CAA for basketball already. What is he going to do? What kind of guy is he going to bring in? And listen, the only the closest thing to Dion probably is, from a brashness standpoint, is probably Charles Barkley right now. I don't know if you could get any more. The people who fit in that category are few and far between. They need somebody that's going to be the face that can drive this thing. I've always said, people have always asked me for years. I've been publishing my page for 29 years, and people have asked me, well, why don't the CIAA and the SIAC and the SWAC all of them get together and form this big HBCU conference, have a national championship? It'll draw, like they sold out the Mercedes-Benz Stadium for this week's game, the game coming up Saturday. They could sell out stadiums on a regular basis. And I've always said it's going to take a special coach and a special administrator, either an athletic director or president, to make it happen. Ashley Robinson did it by bringing in Dion, and that's probably as good as it can get until somebody brings in somebody. And it's just going to be so hard because I just don't know if there's another Deion Sanders out there. I know you saw Barkley gave $1 million to, I think it was Morehouse, as well as to Jackson State this week. Obviously you got guys like Chris Paul and others, that could do things. Chris Paul's probably on the last few years of his NBA career. Maybe these guys will come back to the HBCU level in some way to really continue this explosion that Dion started. But I think absent of that, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to kind of take it from where Dion has brought it and take it forward. He's just that special of an individual.
Real quick, I want to go back to your page. You're talking with Carl Lute Williams, of course, from Anadon, talking HBCU, Tony T. Mac McLean, BAS, and Newsroom as well. Just to get your thoughts, Luke, before you go, Mississippi Valley State makes a move in football. Obviously, Albany State is rich. It really has been a perennial, and of course at Bethune. And then the interesting one, I don't know, you probably knew or saw coming, Bluefield State joining the CIAA. Talk about those moves there that you talk about in your page.
Yeah, it's always going to be openings. Gardenia left Albany State, one of the perennial powers in the SIAC, to go to Charleston Southern, and it's an example of what we're talking about. He used it as a stepping stone. He's actually going back to Charleston Southern, where he coached before as an assistant, I believe it was. And unfortunately, the white coaches that come into the HBCU ranks and do well sometimes get promoted quicker than the than the African Americans do, which I think again is a whole part of this thing that Deion even said that. Deion said, if you're a coach, you either get elevated or you get terminated. Those are the only two options. Elevated, terminated. He got elevated. Don't be mad at him.
No.
So I think that those openings, he hired the coach from Mississippi Valley, who he has been singing the praises of all the time he's been at Jackson State. He was a Jackson State graduate. He brought him in to be one of his assistants at Colorado. So no, I think that obviously it's going to be a big decision. Every AD, whether it's what's the AD's name at Bethune-Cookman, the basketball, UNLV.
Right. He just let the. Oh, I was talking about Coach Sims, but you're talking about the actually AD.
Yeah, the basketball coach at AD. He's got a
Right.
big
Reggie Fields.
Right. Reggie
Fields. Yeah, he's got a big decision. And listen, everybody, when you look at the most recent hires, Hugh Jackson at Grambling and Eddie George at Jackson State, everybody gets it. They get the fact that you need somebody that when you hire him, everybody's going to know, is going to attract people, is going to bring people who want to play for that person, so that person can, any experience and expertise they have about making it at the next level is part of it. That's one of the things that Deion, of course, sold very well. So I think all of those openings, we're going to have to watch carefully. I thought Ashley Robinson, I thought he felt pressure to hire T.C. Taylor because of Jackson's record over the last 2 years and Deion's recommendation. Otherwise, I think Ashley probably would have looked around to see what's the closest thing to Deion Sanders I could find. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't have come up with T.C. Taylor. T.C. Taylor is a tried and true Jackson State guy, and obviously somebody that Deion thought could continue what he's doing. That'll be interesting to see if that happens. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jackson State go back to 6-5, 5-6 next year. So, Bluefield State joining the CIAA, the MEAC is facing a serious dilemma in terms of how they're going to proceed, having only 6 football playing schools. Recently, the OVC and the Big South announced a joint deal where they're going to be playing each other and merging to some kind of a quasi situation conference between the two of them. So, the CIAA is secure in its Division II status. It's not going anywhere. They dropped Shawan, added Bluefield State. This has been on the table for quite some time. They actually just voted this past week. Shawan is leaving. They were already on the way out, so to speak. I wouldn't be surprised to see them probably join the South Atlantic Conference. So it's a lot happening, man, with Sam Washington leaving. I have an exclusive interview with Sam Washington scheduled for Saturday in Atlanta. He's going to be in Atlanta with Tariq Cohen, who's being inducted to the Celebration Bowl Hall of Fame. I talked to Sam last night. He confirmed that they had agreed to part ways. The word I got, and not from Sam, was that he had a buyout clause that if they terminated him before the end of his contract, they'd have to pay him a certain amount of money. I hope to flesh all of that out when I talk to him this weekend down in Atlanta. It's a flurry of activity happening right here at the end of the season. And again, this is my beat, so to speak. So I love it. I love all the activity. I love all of the thing. And if I'd had my druthers, I would have loved Deion to stay around for 2 or 3 more years to just increase, what is started. But it is what it is. So we'll go forward with that.
Yeah, and the final question for you, and then I'll go to Tony. Celebration Bowl, two-parter. Are they? We as the black media are going to talk about and promote it, but and if you're talented, we've seen that with HBCUs in the past that made up the NFL and everything else. But are they getting enough promotion in this game where Jackson State and Central saying, you know what, I want to play in this game because this is going to take us to the highest level. All eyes are going to be on us. Is that it? And then what are the keys to winning? Because Jackson State, like you said, they're undefeated, but they've turned the ball over. They had some close games. Central's a very, very, very good football team. Who do you think is going to win? Then, Tony, you can answer after that.
You know, if you read my page this week, I said that Glendon McDaniel came off the bench as the third string quarterback for Southern, and he put almost 400 yards of total offense in the last 3 quarters. They actually outscored Jackson State 24-17 over the last 3 quarters. Now, you dig a 26-0 hole and turn the ball over 3 times in the first quarter, you stand no chance. The blueprint for beating Jackson, I thought Prairie View showed it last year in the SWAC championship game, but they turned the ball over. South Carolina State executed it in last year's championship game in the Celebration Bowl. Put pressure on Sanders, on Shedeur, get them to turn the ball over. I think that Davius Richard is the second best quarterback and is the best dual quarterback in black college football. He can run. He ran for 13 touchdowns, almost 700 yards, and he passed for almost 2,500 yards and 24 touchdowns. The things they got to avoid is not to turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, they can play with Jackson State head up. And I think they will enter the fourth quarter with a chance to win. You know, they can't do what Southern did, turn it over 3 times in the first quarter. And if you notice, South Carolina State played it very close to the best last year, and it went into the half up 10-7, and then the blowout occurred. They outscored them 21-3 in the second. I mean, 21-3 in the second half. So the biggest question, Jackson State's biggest improvement over last year is its running game. Last year they had a pitiful offensive line and actually were last in the SWAC in rushing. This year they got a 1,000-yard rusher from Dell State, Savion Wilkerson. They're much better running the ball, which means they're going to enter this game in a little better shape than I think they were last year. They're certainly going to be favored, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it come down to the fourth quarter. In terms of the hype or all of the hoopla surrounding the game, being on ABC, being the first bowl game of the year is about as good as it gets. And you know, I don't think it needs any promotion. Obviously, Jackson State being there for the last 2 years has sold out the available seats that they make at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You know, they don't even open the top level. And I asked John Grant at the SWAC championship game, why not? And they said just it sounds better to sell out 48,000 than to have empty seats at the top of a 70,000 seat stadium. I thought they should open it up. I thought they would maybe sell the whole thing out. But I understand the logic because once Dion leaves out, I want to see whether they can sell it out again when he's gone. But you know, it's. I think it'll be a good game. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it's a close game. And I would love nothing better than to see them Dion leave again with his head between his legs like he did last year.
South Carolina Buddy Ball was working. I mean,
they did
it. They definitely had it. T, your thoughts, final thoughts in terms of the game and the exposure of the game.
Central 17-14.
Oh, there you go.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. I think it'll be competitive. I think it'll definitely be a competitive game. This is again, I can't stress it enough that this is as much as this is as much as this is going to be a thing of how Dion's going to do in Colorado. This is a litmus test. This is either going to be a bounce off point for HBCU football and HBCU sports in general, or it's going to be something that they let get away. And I think all of us here collectively want to see HBCU sports grow because of this, because there is so much that's there. You know, we don't, and the thing is, I think we can say this without whatever. We, you know, as a collective, we never needed the Mouse or Fox or whatever to tell us about how great HBCU sports was. Yeah, it's nice that you're at the party and everything like that, but if you really want, if you really want to see something, hang out with us for a little while. I mean, we ain't gonna beg you to hang out. If you want to hang out, fine. But if you don't, that's, you know, Your loss, not ours.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting if he goes out 0-2 in those games, winning all those games, and he loses again. This time the Central, which I think you both said, Central's a very good football team. They've been good all year.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
we should basically call it the MEAC Celebration Ball. Yeah. This is we're still waiting for the SWAC to. I mean, the SWAC is one, but we're still waiting for the SWAC to bring one home. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see just how SWAC he is on Saturday, I guess.
The defensive coordinator at Central was the defensive coordinator for all of A&T's wins in the Celebration Bowl.
There you go.
Courtney Gord. And the reputation is that the SWAC is a passing conference, and that the MEAC is a grinded out running conference. The SWAC puts up all the glittering numbers and the big numbers and the gaudy numbers, but they don't win because, the philosophy of Rod Broadway and Sam Washington was you can throw the ball as much as you want, but at this level, the quarterbacks are not that good.
Right.
So throw the ball all you want. You're going to make mistakes, and 2 interceptions and a fumble is what Shedeur Sanders had last year against South Carolina State that doomed their chances. So,
and they ran a lot of stuff defensively up the middle, and they came off the edge. So
right.
You're right. You're right. That pressure comes off. I don't care who's your father. You still got to play the game.
Right. He ran for his life the whole last year's game. He was running every time off his mark. They got him off the mark. So we'll have to see if Central has the personnel to be able to really put some pressure on him. If they don't put pressure on him, he's going to pick them apart. So we'll see.
Right, and I do agree with you in terms of FAMU moving forward next year, that they stepped their game up. They got a good class coming in, and we'll see. There's a lot of people rooting against Deion on his way out. Let's be clear, but we'll see what happens. And Lou, if after the game next week, you can come on and recap and stuff, and we really appreciate it. Before you go, let people know about Anadon, man. Again, you do a fantastic job in just the history of the game and staying and being an insider with these coaches and these ADs.
Well, thanks, man. I lost my main man, my road dog, my partner, but basically the whole time that I've been doing the Black College Sports Page. When I started in 1994, there was 2 people I called. One was Ed Hill at Howard University, and the other was Eric Moore. And Eric and I started together, and he was faithfully, when he created Anadan.com, put up the sports page every year until his passing a month or so ago. So Anadan, the family is still trying to deal with all of the ramifications of Eric passing. But the page is on Anadan. But if anyone wants to get it, I also send out a page to a list of about 300 folks every week, and I'll be glad to include anyone in it. It primarily is in the African American newspapers around the country. We're in about 10 right now, but Anadan was the primary means of electronic distribution. I'm actually pondering whether I should do something more specific electronically to distribute the page. Even though I'm working with HBCU Game Day right now. So there's a lot of different kind of things going on. But yeah, that's my publication. The Black Page comes out every Tuesday. And faithfully, this is my 29th year. So thanks for having me on. I enjoyed being with you and Tony, as always, man. I come back anytime I can.
Absolutely. Black College Sports Page doing it up. And T, BAS and Newsroom, and you guys, I know, always do features. Tell people how they can follow and reach out to you.
Well, when I grow up, I want to be just like Luke, pretty much. So we're riding in. We're coming in on his coattails. www.basnnewsroom.com. I guess we'll be doing our hockey stuff in another couple of weeks or so, as well. And just again, I'm actually, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm actually watching. What is this? I'm watching Pain. No, I'm sorry. Is it? Oh, Miles and Miles College and Benedict College men's hoops on BCSN, on BCSN and HBCU Live. So HBCU Go. I'm sorry. So
Right.
it's I just love the fact that game that their games on during the week, and you can actually but if you got a Fire Stick or if you have cable or what have you, you can watch all sorts of HBCU sports. But see, again, this is hopefully it just between what Byron Allen and all these other folks are doing, this can just add even more to it. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be great.
Well, I just want to say, folks that are watching on Pad Nation One, Pad Nation on Facebook, and StreamYard, we're broadcasting that it doesn't get better than the Black College Sports page and BASN Newsroom. We need to support. If you really are a fan and want to get some inside knowledge on HBCUs, not just the football, basketball, but track and field and everything else. These are the two that you want to support. We need to support each other in the first place. You don't need a 4-letter word. They're going to give you entertainment. Luke's going to give you some real stuff with some insight, and so is T-Mac. I appreciate you both. Merry Christmas to you and your families. Y'all be safe. If I don't get to you before then, God bless, and you'll be safe. We'll talk with you on the other side. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hey, take care, guys.
All right, man.
Thanks, Luke. Luke Williams, Tony T-Mac McClain. That's it for us. Again, if you missed any part of our broadcast, you can go to Fire Stick and check it out. If you download the Big Mind app, if you're on Roku, you can download the IBM TV app. Follow us on TuneIn, iTunes, anywhere you can get the podcast. Sign up and be a subscriber at Pad Nation on Facebook, Pad Nation 2 at Twitter, and Pad Nation 1 at YouTube. Enjoy. We will talk with you very, very soon on the Bachelor News Radio Show on the Bachelor News Radio Network.
Hang all the mistletoe, I'm gonna get to know you better this Christmas. And as we trim the tree, how much fun it's gonna be together this Christmas. The fireside is blazing bright, we're caroling through the night, and this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me. Presents and cards are here, my world is filled with cheer and you. This Christmas, and as I look around, your eyes outshine the town they do. This Christmas, the fireside is blazing bright, we're caroling through the night, and this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me. Yeah. Shake a hand now. this Christmas, and as we trim the tree, how much fun it's gonna be together. This Christmas, the fireside is blazing bright. We're caroling through the night, and this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me. Merry Christmas. Shake a hand now. Wish your brother Merry Christmas.